Chapter 712. In the boundless starry sky, pillars stood tall on an ancient road. It was unknown who had erected them, but they had existed in the starry sky for countless years. Not far from the 12th pillar, a god had appeared in the ruins of God. Its terrifying divine might shook everything within 10,000 miles. Many young experts' bodies exploded under the divine might. Their blood and chi were devoured by the god to repair their bodies. At the front, a red light flashed past. It was running faster than anyone else. A few hundred miles away, Ningchen stopped and looked behind him. Rays of light flashed past. What a powerful aura. It had probably entered the true realm. What kind of monster is it? Einer peeked out her head from behind him. A god, Ningchen said. Like the vermilion bird in Luotian, this person wasn't human. He had lived for countless years, so it was best not to provoke him. How unlucky. I thought there were treasures, Einer said disappointedly. Let's go. It'll be troublesome if that guy catches up, Ningchen said, then pulled the little girl beside him, and was about to leave. Suddenly, the wind and clouds in the sky stirred. An illusory figure appeared and blocked the two of them. Ningchen stopped in his tracks when he saw who it was, and his eyes narrowed slightly. Brother Ning, long time no see, said the illusory figure in the wind and clouds. House Master, it can't be a coincidence that I met you here, right? Asked Ningchen calmly. Of course not. I came here to ask Brother Ning to stop this person for a moment. 2 Starfield managers will be here soon to replace Brother Ning, said the Dawn Moon House Master. Oh. Ningchen raised his eyebrows. House Master, you really think highly of me. It'll be difficult to stop a true realm god. Let's not beat around the bush. I understand Brother Ning's abilities. If you cooperate with the 3 enforcers, it won't be impossible for you to stop this person for a moment, said the Dawn Moon House Master. House Master, please find someone else, Ningchen said casually, and continued to walk forward with the little girl beside him. As long as Brother Ning can stop him, once the 2 Starfield managers get rid of him, his god's source will belong to Brother Ning, said the Dawn Moon House Master. Ningchen stopped and looked back at the figure in the sky. He said indifferently, House Master, I'm becoming more and more curious about your true identity. You will know in the future. Brother Ning, this transaction can be considered fair, right? The Dawn Moon Brothel Master asked. Not bad. However, I would like to know, how long exactly is the half an hour that you spoke of? Ningchen looked at the former and asked. 6 hours, the Waning Moon Brothel Master replied. Hey, you're really quick. Deal, Ningchen replied calmly. I will wait for Brother Ning's good news. As soon as he finished speaking, the wind and clouds swirled, and the illusory figure dispersed, disappearing without a trace. After the Dawn Moon Brothel Mistress left, Ningchen's gaze turned serious as he looked behind him. You don't really believe that black-hearted merchant's words, do you? Einer's face flashed with worry. The benefits outweigh the risks. It's worth a try, Ningchen said softly. He had been stuck at the Great Fulfillment Realm for a long time, and he had to try his best to find a way. Regardless of whether it was the god's scroll or the god's origin, he had to give it a try. He didn't believe in heavenly fate. He only believed in himself. It wasn't easy for him to be rewarded for his hard work, so he had to cherish it. As he spoke, 3 figures swiftly rushed over from the distance. All of them were at the mid-corporeal stage and were abnormally powerful. Einer, you stay here. Don't run around. I'll come pick you up once the fight is over. Ningchen stroked the little girl's hair and said softly. All right. You have to be careful. If you can't beat them, just run. Einer looked at Ningchen and worriedly warned him. Don't worry, I won't be impulsive. Ningchen nodded in response. He took a step forward and flashed forward. In the distance, the 3 enforcers of the ancient Road of the Stars sensed a powerful aura and quickly rushed over. A moment later, the 4 of them appeared in front of the god ruins, blocking the path of the god spirit. Emo Gate's 9th son. One of the enforcers looked at the red-robed youth and said, Many thanks for your help. You have heaven and earth extreme speed, so I'll leave the task of restricting this person's attacks to you. All right. Ningchen waved his hand, and Phoenix Flame's sword. A blood-red sword appeared in his hand. The instant he grasped it, sword chi dazzled. Phoenix! The god spirit's eyes narrowed. As a fellow god spirit, you're actually helping a human? You really disappoint me. What is a god spirit? Is eternal life a god? Or are you saying that those who stand above all living things are gods? The red-robed youth flashed over, and the phoenix moved with extreme speed. It was a true realm god. The palm and sword collided, and the god spirit's physical body, which was comparable to metal and stone, received the sharp sword. After receiving the first move, the god spirit countered with a forceful counterattack. When the three enforcers saw this, they gathered their essence and joined forces to receive the god spirit's attack. With a boom, blood splattered, and the three of them were forced back several steps. In just one move, the difference between them had been decided. Be careful. One of the enforcers wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. Without a doubt, this would be the most difficult battle of their lives. If they were careless, they might lose their lives. But no matter what, they couldn't let this person leave. The other two enforcers also focused. 6 hours was the limit of their life and death. The battle had only just begun, but they were already at a disadvantage. Ning Chen frowned, and with a shout, the blood essence of the four symbols gods flew out, shining brightly. In the next moment they merged into his body. Amidst the raging winds and waves, the phoenix ancestral awakening. Its black hair instantly turned red. Divine realm. Seeing this, the god spirit squinted his eyes. What a powerful origin aura. After devouring this person, his strength would immediately return to its peak. At the same time, in front of Tianlai Peak, the flames of war raged. Black feathers fluttered in the sky. Behind the demon cultivator, the 12 wings of sin appeared. In an instant, the demon cultivator's demonic aura soared into the sky. Mad Doomsday's entire body was black. With a slash of his sword, the entire Tianlai Peak collapsed. Debris flew everywhere, and pieces of it fell from the sky. The demon cultivator was beyond comprehension. With the wings of sin, his aura changed abruptly. In the blink of an eye, his sword slashed the sky. Yin Yuntian's pupil shrank. The oblivion cloud halberd met the sword head-on. With the support of the three supreme treasures, he resisted the demon cultivator's demonic aura. With a boom, wind and thunder roared in the sky. The demon cultivator advanced instead of retreating. The demon sword's murderous aura surged, breaking through the aftershock and slashing toward Yin Yuntian's heart. Purple chi from the east, Yin Yuntian held his halberd together, and a vast divine aura rose rapidly to meet Mad Doomsday's attack. The sound was earth-shattering. The strongest king of the younger generation fought the emperor of the demon cultivator. The halberd and the demon sword collided violently. Hundreds and thousands of li fell inch by inch, as if they were being punished by the heavens. On the other side, the Eternal Night Sex female disciple used the Moon Scroll's divine ability. Cold Palace descended from the sky, and the 13 young experts were unable to take half a step forward. Who are you people? As the battle reached its climax, Yin Yuntian became more and more alarmed. He gathered the power of his supreme treasures and strengthened his body. His cultivation continued to rise, and there were signs of him breaking into the corporeal realm. Demon sword, bury the heavens. Without saying a word, he used his killer move again. Xia Zi's demonic aura surged, and his white hair danced wildly. The demon sword radiance soared into the sky. With a slash, the 9 heavens collapsed. Yin Yuntian stepped forward and gathered his true yuan. His halberd broke through the sky and collided with the bury the heavens sword. Ugh! Blood splattered. The sword and halberd collided, and the aftershock spread out. The rainbow armor could not withstand the continuous impact of the demon cultivator's demonic aura and shattered. Blood flowed out of the demon cultivator's hand. He was also injured by the aftershock. Is it finally broken? The demon sovereign did not care about his arm being injured. The battle intent in his eyes intensified. Now that the armor was broken, the battle should be over. With a wave of his hand, demonic waves surged out of the Mad Doomsday halberd. Black streams roared and surged. Under the cold moon, the area within 100 miles was affected by this terrifying demonic aura and violently shook. Yin Yuntian's eyes narrowed. He suppressed his injuries and gathered the spiritual energy of heaven and earth with a flip of his palm. The forgetting cloud god Halbert's aura soared into the sky, and its power multiplied. Sorry, but you can't take his life yet. Just at this moment, a green flash of light descended from the sky. The peerlessly beautiful woman slashed out with the heavenly slash in her hand. A horrifying saber light slashed apart the battle. An instant later, she brought the injured Yin Yuntian away with her. Xia Zi swung his sword to deflect the green saber light. A cold light flashed in his eyes as he looked in the direction the two had left. On the other side of the battle, Luofei pushed away several people in front of her, with a flip of her palm. She walked over and asked, "Did he escape?" Xia Zi nodded and said, "Someone interfered. However, the rainbow battle armor has been completely destroyed. This person has lost his protective armor and is no longer a threat." 1,000 miles away, light gathered and Lu Qingyi appeared with Palace Master 7 kills. "It's you." Yin Yuntian looked at the woman in front of him and said seriously, "Yin Yuntian, you're on your own now." Lu Qingyi said indifferently and turned to leave without saying anything else. She was also the head of the 3 palaces of the Ziwei Star. Helping him this time was her last favor. Palace Master Vanquisher had just left, and Yin Yuntian was about to leave to treat his injuries. Suddenly, his footsteps paused and he forgot about the horizon. Something's wrong. A green light shone brightly in the sky, and the sound of Buddha was heard. The shadow of a green lotus fell from the sky, and the moment it landed, a green divine spear broke through the air. The lotus breath gathered the power of Buddha, and it showed the elegance of stepping on celestials. Yin Yuntian swung his halberd to block the spear. With a bang, his heavily injured body could not withstand the Buddhist might. Blood flowed from his hands and dyed the halberd red. Without saying anything, the figure in green stepped forward. The green divine spear in her hand was like a dragon breaking through the clouds. Every move was meant to kill. Although she had a Buddhist body, she was willing to walk the path of Azura. With one move, blood flowed like a fountain. The more Yin Yuntian fought, the more frightened he became. However, his heavily injured body could not continue. Every move he blocked was followed by another. After a few rounds of pursuit, even one of the 9 kings had reached his limit. His armor was destroyed and his body was heavily injured. He could not withstand the shocking killing intent. "Who are you people?" For reasons unknown, Yin Yuntian had never heard of powerful opponents. He blocked with his halberd, but the sky was dyed red again. "Heavenly dragon breaks the city." The figure in green swept past. The green divine spear in her hand turned into a dragon and rushed towards the former. With a loud bang, the divine weapons collided and both flew out of her hands. At this moment, the woman turned her left hand, and the divine weapon that flew out returned to her. Changing hands, the divine spear pierced through his body and blood spurted out. His unwilling eyes could no longer see the world clearly. The woman waved her hand and put away the divine spear. Without looking back, she walked away. Chapter 713. In front of the divine ruins, the phoenix fought against the deity. Blood-colored lightning streaked across the sky. In the blink of an eye, it was hard to see the phoenix's figure. It was so fast that no afterimages could be seen. Between heaven and earth, there was only the red sword light that constantly streaked across the sky. The deity focused his eyes and flipped his palm, using his unbreakable body to block the sword light. The deity, who had been sleeping for countless years, had returned to the world today. Although his cultivation was not at its peak, it was still terrifying. The 3 middle-level corporeal realm enforcers joined forces to fight against the deity. After exchanging a few moves, their bodies were already stained with blood. Although they had the advantage of speed, the deity's strength was difficult to measure. The injuries in their bodies continued to accumulate, quickly destroying their martial bones. Time seemed to pass very slowly at this moment. Every move seemed to have been slowed down by countless times. The 3 enforcers endured their injuries and swallowed their blood secretly. When they risked their lives to fight against the heavens, their cultivation rose to the peak, and they faced the deity head-on. "With such ability, where did you get the courage to stop me?" The deity took the attack head-on. His right palm gathered the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and a vast and unparalleled deity roared out. The destructive power made the heavens mourn and the earth miserable. Ah! With a groan, blood flowed like a waterfall. The three enforcers retreated a few steps, and were heavily injured again. Formless sword. The deity took the sword and red light gathered. The astral soul in his hand spun rapidly, and gathered all his energy to break the deity's body. The ear-piercing sound of metal rubbing against stone rang out. The astral soul entered half an inch into the deity's body, and broke through his defense for the first time. Back off. The deity's eyes turned cold. The divine energy around his body erupted and spread out. The red light flashed and dodged the deity's attack. Soon after, it turned back. The sword was extremely fast, and every move was aimed at the deity's weak point. The deity turned his palm to block the sword. A hint of impatience flashed in his eyes. What a troublesome phoenix! In the intense exchange, the sword was fast and the palm was stronger. The deity's body, that was difficult to be injured by swords and sabers, took on most of the attacks. This made the originally unfair battle even more biased. The sword that left as soon as it touched the deity was unwilling to meet it head-on. The red light turned into red lightning in the starry sky. It became faster and faster, and it was difficult to catch. The moment the deity's attack was restricted, the three enforcers suppressed their injuries and gathered their vital energy. Their palms broke through the air. The combined attack of three mid-corporeal realm experts destroyed everything in its path. The sky darkened and the earth darkened, unable to withstand its might. Is that all? The deity snorted coldly. He didn't dodge or evade. Instead, he flipped his palm and faced the combined might of the three. With a violent tremor, the mountains moved and the earth moved. The power of the three men's palms was actually neutralized, unable to harm the god in the slightest. After the first move, divine might surged out, forcefully counterattacking. Among the three of them, one of the enforcers was the first to bear the brunt of the divine might. He let out a long and painful groan, and his body suddenly exploded. The scattered bones indicated the failure of the battle of entrapment. The deity took a step forward, and his figure flashed out. His palms condensed the power of heaven and earth, and he slapped toward the last two enforcers. The sudden change in the situation could no longer be sustained. The two enforcers exploded on the spot, and their blood and bones scattered all over the sky. Ning Chen's eyes narrowed as he slashed out with his sword. Flames of war spread out, and instantly incinerated the remaining quintessence of the three of them. Seeing this, the deity's face sank. He looked at the former and said coldly, "So what if I destroy their source energy? There are countless living beings on this path. I can still devour them all and return to my peak state. Is that so? Then I'll help you succeed. Goodbye." After saying this, Hong Yi took a step forward and leaped into the distance. Outside the boundless starry sky, the leaders of the various star fields appeared. Their expressions were very ugly. "We failed," the leader of the Z-Way star zone said. "This time, the deity is stronger than we imagined. There are only 3 enforcers. The difference is too great," Shinji said. "What about the 9th son of the Mahist sect?" the leader of the Luojia star zone asked. "He retreated," Shinji calmly replied. "He alone can't stop that deity. Naturally, he won't stay to die. The ancient path must not be destroyed. Does anyone have any better ideas?" the illusory figure in the middle asked. Everyone was silent. For a moment, there was nothing they could do. The Dawn Moon brothel master looked at everyone. After a while, she calmly reminded them, "Don't you all still have a sword in your hands?" Hong Yi flashed across the ancient path in the starry sky, and arrived at the agreed location. He took the little girl who had been waiting and quickly left. "What's wrong?" Iner was puzzled. "We can't beat him," Ningchen replied. "What about the 3 seniors?" Iner asked again. She could clearly feel 3 powerful auras rushing toward the battle. "They're dead," Ningchen replied calmly. Iner's eyelids twitched when she heard this. "Dead again? Where can you escape to?" Behind them, a terrifying aura quickly rushed over. The pressure was earth-shattering and shocking. Ningchen ignored it, and just pulled along as he ran in front. The flowing light in the starry sky was extremely fast. Soon the distance between them widened, Even the deity, who was no longer at his peak, found it difficult to catch up. The deity stopped and looked at the phoenix in the distance. A cold glint flashed in his eyes. 1,000 miles away, Ningchen also stopped and looked behind him. His expression did not change at all. You really can't stop him for 6 hours? Einar asked softly. I can, but the price is too high. It's not worth it, Ningchen said honestly. Oh, then we won't care. Einar nodded. Although she could not bear to, compared to those people, Ningchen's safety was more important. 1,000 miles away, the deity was wreaking havoc. In order to recover his vitality, he wantonly massacred living creatures. In front of the 12th heavenly pillar, the entire ancient path had turned into hell. A king had fallen. He should have lived a glorious life, but he was unwilling to die in this sudden disaster. In the distance, Ningchen calmly looked at this miserable scene. His gaze was calm, and his heart was like ice. It did not waver in the slightest. At this moment, wind and lightning raged in the sky. An extremely powerful sword descended from the sky. The moment the sword appeared, the stars in the sky shook. The appearance of an immortal sword startled even gods and ghosts. Mahasek's 9th son. As they spoke, 3 illusory figures walked out. They looked at the red-clothed youth in front of them. One of them said, "Stop him for 6 hours. The previous conditions will not change. I'll lend you this sword for 100 years. Ningchen looked at the immortal sword descending from the sky and narrowed his eyes. Immortal trapping sword. Einar stretched out her hand and pulled the person beside her. Her face was full of worry. Deal. Ningchen slowly said. We await your good news. As soon as he finished speaking, the 3 figures dispersed and disappeared without a trace. Ningchen. Einar pulled on his sleeve and said worriedly, Wait for me here. Ningchen instructed in a soft voice. He didn't say anything else, and his feet moved as he transformed into a ray of light and left. With this sword, he would have the capital to fight against a true realm expert in the future. He could not refuse this condition. In front of the 12th heavenly pillar, the deity turned his palm and absorbed the origin of the king. His aura rose again. At this moment, a sword light pierced through the sky and arrived behind the deity. The deity turned around and raised his hand to disperse the sword light. He looked at the person who came with a cold gaze. Phoenix, you're courting death. The battle just now was just a warm-up. Let's officially begin now. With that, the immortal trapping sword stabbed into the ground. In front of the heavenly pillar, the 100 miles of stone ground disintegrated. Rays of bloody light soared into the sky. The terrifying power shook the universe. Immortal sword. Seeing this, the deity's face darkened. The phoenix actually had a treasure of the 4 great immortal realms. However, an even more shocking scene occurred. In the sky full of phoenix flames, a second immortal sword descended from the sky and landed in the hands of the red-clothed youth. In an instant, the red-clothed youth flashed by and slashed with the sword. The deity turned his palm to block the sword. However, a terrifying vibration was heard. The murderous sword light spread everywhere. The heavenly pillar could not withstand its ferocious power and collapsed. Giant rocks fell. Ghosts and deities were miserable. The battle was separated. The 2 people who knew each other's strength had a serious expression. Sword technique, Heaven's Tears. With a turn of the palm, the immortal slaying sword trembled. The resentment of the dead creatures on the ancient road gathered. The clouds in the sky changed. The deity raised his head and looked at the resentment gathering in the sky. His eyes darkened. The current phoenix actually had the ability to gather the resentment of all creatures. How was this possible? As the resentment descended, the atmosphere suddenly became heavy. The deity felt the vital essence in his body stagnate. It was difficult for him to circulate it. With a step, the red-clothed youth rushed forward again. The immortal slaying sword attacked mercilessly. The deity blocked the sword. The deity's body, which was not injured by the sword, showed signs of instability for the first time under the immortal slaying sword's sharp edge. Presumptuous. The deity was furious. After receiving the sword edge, he struck out with a palm, forcefully retaliating. Just as the palm energy was about to hit him, the trapping celestial sword hummed on the ground. Red light gathered in the sky and blocked the palm energy of the deity. For symbols divine seal, heavenly dragon shock. Borrowing the power of the other party, the azure dragon roared to the sky. Red clothes flashed past, and the dragon soared out of the sea, breaking through the sky. With a loud bang, the dust billowed, and the terrifying shockwaves shook the ground. The ground disintegrated inch by inch, and it completely turned into nothingness. It was difficult to use the true power in her body for a moment, and it was difficult to display her valiant divine might. Phoenix's figure floated gracefully, her sword light crisscrossing, and she displayed her shocking sword skills. Slaying immortal sharp, slaughtering immortal death, trapping immortal red light everywhere. The immortal ending immortal's transformations were infinitely wondrous, and the blood of the grand Luo divine immortals dyed his robes. Today, the immortal slaying sword and the immortal trapping sword appeared in the mortal realm at the same time. With their cooperation, they could fight against the gods of heaven and earth. 4 symbols divine seal, heavenly burial of dragon and phoenix. With one move, the dragon and phoenix intertwined. The dazzling light of the sword circled into the air and roared out. The deity roared, and his body changed for the first time. Divine light flourished around him, and a divine weapon that resembled a halberd and spear extended from his body, blocking the sword light with a bang. Facing the strongest opponent since awakening, the deity did not dare to be careless. With the symbiotic weapon in hand, he met the phoenix head-on. The deity of fire, the deity of heaven and earth. This was a battle that surpassed the limits of the mortal realm. On the ancient path, rays of killing light spread, and the power to destroy the heavens and earth shook thousands of miles. 1,000 miles away, illusory figures walked out one after another. Seeing this shocking battle, the light in their eyes continued to rise. 2 immortal swords with power comparable to the true realm. Mahis Gate's 9th son was truly terrifying. Waning Moon Tower Master, we finally understand why you were so insistent on lowering the age limit from 60 to 100 years. What a pity, said one of the Star Region's managers. Such a terrifying youth could no longer be viewed as a junior. He had already surpassed his peers by far too much. The competition between heavenly geniuses was truly a joke. The Waning Moon Tower Master looked ahead without saying a word. Her eyes flashed. Trampling immortal Ning Chun. If you don't want to be like a shooting star that only shines for a moment, you have to prove that everyone's judgment is wrong. Whether you're looking up from the ground or standing in the sky together, that's something only you can decide. Chapter 7:14. At the ruins of the 12 heavenly pillars, the battle between the deities gradually reached its climax. The deity slaying immortal sword shone brightly with red light. The sonorous sound of weapons clashing resounded between heaven and earth. The flames of war filled the sky. It was an unbelievable battle. Every move had the power to destroy heaven and earth. The deity slaying immortal was sharp, the deity slaying immortal was strong, and the deity trapping immortal was surrounded by red light. The 2 deity swords that suppressed the 4 great deity worlds had now appeared at the same time. The deities' bodies were immortal, but the deity sword's sharpness was beyond their limits. They were extremely fast, and their killing power was shocking. In the distance, the Star Sector sovereigns who were watching the battle could not hide their shock. The combat power of the 9th disciple of Mahis sect was truly terrifying. He had such ability even without entering the deity-treading realm. It was shocking, sky-breaking. As the deity swords approached, Hongyi waved her deity-slaying immortal sword. A huge ravine appeared and drowned the deity-slaying immortal sword. Expert! The deity-slaying immortal sword rushed out of the huge ravine in space. The 100 refinements in his hand shook the sky and the sea. Hongyi dodged the deity-slaying immortal sword. A moment later, she turned back and slashed out with an equally powerful sword. The deity-slaying immortal sword clashed again. The sky fell and the earth sank. The starry sky within 10,000 miles swayed, as if it was facing an apocalyptic calamity. In the deathly silent starry sky, bones were floating in the sky. Only the sound of battle could be heard, rumbling and resounding for 10,000 miles. The battle continued. Killing light filled the sky. The deity's slaying immortal sword was difficult to escape. He knew that the fastest way to escape was to kill the phoenix in front of him. The 100 refinements was like a dragon breaking through the clouds. It stirred up wind and thunder, its power becoming more and more terrifying. The deity-slaying immortal sword shook the sky. It was peerlessly sharp. Nothing could resist its sharpness. In the starry sky, the battle between the two swords and the deity-slaying immortal sword became more and more intense. No one could gain the upper hand. 100 suns returning to the east, a sword shining the 100 suns. At the same time, the sword will swept out, and the convergence technique rushed out. The deity slaying 100 suns. In an instant the suns shattered, and fire waves filled the sky. Fourth sword, river of forgetfulness. The azure frost sword appeared and frost spread. The yellow springs opened the way, and the river of forgetfulness was crossed. Useless, the deity coldly snorted. He brandished his 100 refined sword, scattering the incoming attack. Deity technique. The remaining power of the 100 suns, and the river of forgetfulness, shook the area. Hong Yi used his sword to absorb the remaining power of the two moves, revealing the yin-yang celestial technique. Waxing, waxing and waning, a black moon appeared and shrouded the deity's body. A moment later, the black moon turned white and devoured the deity's body. When the immortal technique hit his body, he felt an intense tearing sensation. The god's eyes darkened slightly. With a long shout, his divine essence surged, and he forcefully resisted the immortal technique. At the moment when the divine essence and celestial arts collided, Hong Yi flashed past and once again charged forward. With a slash of her sword, she slashed at the deity's chest. Unable to dodge in time, the deity grabbed the immortal sword with his left hand, blocking the killer move. One sword formless. Zhu Xian spun, and the broken sword continued its sharpness. The sharp sword qi broke through the divine spirit's obstruction and penetrated his body. A soft groan could be heard as the deity turned his palm over and struck the deity's body. The immortal trapping cry sounded. The red sword light blocked this move, but it immediately shattered, unable to block the divine might. A pool of blood splashed out. Hong Yi retreated several steps and barely managed to stop herself. Injuries were exchanged, and no one was able to gain the upper hand. In 1,000 years, you are the first person to injure me. The deity looked at the blood flowing out of his chest and said coldly, "It's a pity that I couldn't take your life." Ning Chen raised his hand to wipe away the nearest bloodstain and said calmly, "How can a deity's face be blasphemed? Phoenix, you will pay the heaviest price for your ignorance." As soon as he finished speaking, the deity flipped his left hand slightly, and a shocking pressure spread out. The 100 refinement sword qi shone brightly, and rays of sharp light intertwined with each other, destroying everything in its path. Ning Chen's eyes narrowed as he looked into the distance. 6 hours was really not an easy task. Can the 9th son of Mahist hold on for 6 hours? 1,000 miles away, the leader of the Ziwei galaxy looked at the battle and asked, "I'm not sure. Although this child's battle prowess is shocking, he is facing a deity born from heaven and earth." The leader of the Luojia galaxy replied, "Dawn Moon Tower Master, you know this child the best. What do you think?" The leader of the Ziwei galaxy asked again. Dawn Moon Tower Master did not answer directly. She looked at the figure beside her and said calmly, "Shinji, what do you think?" "It's hard to predict." Shinji said calmly. "When I fought with him before, his battle prowess was only around the early to mid-corporeal realm. Today he is different. I think that in such a short time, even with the support of the two swords, he should not have improved so much." "Shinji, what do you mean?" The leader of the Ziwei galaxy frowned. "Until the moment of life and death, no one knows how much power he has left," Shinji said calmly. 10%, 20%. Or is it that the current him is enough to kill this deity alone? The leader of the Ziwei Star Zone was stunned when he heard that. How could that be? "Shinji, you must be joking." Dawn Moon Tower Master smiled and said, "This child is extraordinary, but he is not as terrifying as Shinji said." "Perhaps." Shinji did not refute. He looked at the battle in front of him, and a ray of light flashed across his eyes. "Dawn Moon Tower Master, why are you protecting this child like this?" While the four of them were talking, the battle in the distance had reached its most critical moment. Figures were constantly crossing each other, and the flames of war were burning. The two extremely powerful deities used all their battle prowess. 100 refinements and fairy slayers clashed, and the flames of war filled the sky. Deities from different eras met at the peak today. One was unusually powerful, and the other was unpredictable. In the sky full of red light, their cold faces were reflected. Time passed slowly, and the two in the battle began to get injured. After all, the power of divine weapons was not something that could be blocked by physical bodies. Phoenix was like this, and so was the deity. 6 hours was an unusually long time, but the path of knowing destiny would not stop here. Deities were not insurmountable. Phoenix, is it worth it to risk your life for these humans? The deity said coldly, shaking the sky and shaking the battle. It's not worth it. Ning Chun rushed forward, and the sword light was dazzling, and the killing moves were endless. 100 refinements blocked fairy slayers, and the aftermath roared. In an instant, a white light appeared, and the soft sword twisted, locking the edge of 100 refinements. Sky shattering. The moment the divine weapon was locked, the sky full of red light gathered, and fairy slayers slashed down. The deity raised his hand to block the immortal sword, and with a bang blood splattered. Why? The deity's eyes were cold as he asked. Benefits, Ning Chun replied, and the sword in his hand pressed down on the deity. As noble as Phoenix, you are actually so filthy. You really disappoint me. The deity snorted coldly, and ignoring the injury on his arm, he turned his palm and sent the person in front of him flying. Taking advantage of the momentum, he took a step and jumped into the sky. His sword shone, and streaks of red light rushed into the sky, surging and converging. Nirvana! Nirvana reappeared, and there was only one at the peak. The crisscrossing sword light was magnificent. After learning and comprehending the sword for 30 years, he finally used his sword today. The deity raised his head and looked at the sword light gathering in the sky, and his eyes kept jumping. Is this the current Phoenix? 9 dragons against the world. In a situation where he could not hold back, the deity waved 100 refinements, and 9 dragons coiled around his body and rushed into the sky. The next moment, the sword light fell from the sky, endless and glorious. The two weapons collided, and the destructive power spread rapidly, reaching thousands of miles away. In the aftermath, the deity's figure was pushed back several feet, and drops of blood dripped down from his arm. He had suffered serious injuries. On the other side, red appeared, and the sword was dyed red, making red clothes even more beautiful. Phoenix, how much power do you still have? The deity's eyes were unusually cold as he said, My mission is over. Ning Chun replied calmly, and his gaze looked into the distance. Hearing this, the deity was startled at first, and then his expression changed abruptly. Between heaven and earth, thunderclouds rolled, and in the space that kept rolling, 2 unusually powerful auras gradually approached, and they became clearer and clearer. Phoenix, you? The deity was furious. It turned out that the person in front of him was just stalling for time. If you hate me, you can wait on the road to the underworld. After saying this, Ning Chun's figure flashed, and he took the celestial trapping sword and left the battle. The 9th son of the Mahis faction, thank you. As soon as he said this, the space suddenly split open, and 2 figures walked out. Their auras were vast and mighty, as if a layer of heaven was pressing down, so heavy that it was difficult to breathe. The people in charge of the All Heavens and Spirit Void star fields had appeared in the battle. Before they even made a move, the surroundings had already begun to collapse. Without a doubt, the True Realm experts had officially descended on the ancient starry sky path. 2 supremacies, please remember your promise. Ning Chun said calmly, and did not stay any longer, and stepped away. 1,000 miles away, Ener was anxiously waiting. When she saw the figure in front of her, she immediately ran over. You're injured. Seeing the blood on the former's hands, Ener was anxious and asked. It's just a small injury, it's not a problem. Ning Chun revealed a gentle expression and said, Let's go. Are we not waiting for the battle to end? Ener felt the aftermath of the battle that was getting more and more intense in the distance and asked. No need. Ning Chun shook his head and said, The Dawn Moon Tower Master is an excellent merchant. She knows what to do. Oh, wait a moment. Einar nodded, and after thinking, she tore off a corner of her clothes and carefully bandaged the former's hands. Ningchen looked at the little girl's childish behavior and did not stop her. Let's go. After bandaging the wound and tying 2 bow knots, Einar looked at her masterpiece and said with a smile. Ningchen nodded and allowed the little girl to hug his arms as they walked forward. Not long after the two left, the surrounding heaven and earth were completely swallowed by the aftermath of the battle. The terrifying waves brought out large amounts of blood. It was so beautiful. The splendor of life would only bloom beautifully at the moment of withering. In the 5 regions, 2 figures were walking forward. The man in a silver-gray cloak had sharp features and an extraordinary cold temperament. Beside the man was a beautiful woman who could not hide the confusion in her eyes. Tower Master, is this the inner realm you mentioned? Hong Wan asked. Yes. The Dawn Moon Tower Master nodded and looked at the majestic mountains and rivers in front of her. She said, the Lord of the 7 Extinction Heaven hated the greed of humans and wanted to create a pure land, a world without war and slaughter. However, he failed. A strange expression flashed through Hong Wan's eyes. This was not the first time she heard the Tower Master mention this Lord of the Netherworld. After looking at the rivers of the central region for 2 days, the Dawn Moon Tower Master changed her direction and walked towards the east. The Jiming Marquis was the name of the taboo in the central region. It seemed that if she wanted to know more, she had to make a trip there. The origin of the legend was a country that the 4 regions were unwilling to mention. Chapter 7:15. On the ancient starry sky road, the 16th heavenly pillar stood tall in the sky. In front of the heavenly pillar, Hong Yi stopped and looked at the names in front of him. He squinted his eyes. There were many names, but 3 names were very eye-catching. They were the strongest kings of the younger generation. Einar pulled the person beside her and asked, "What's wrong?" "I'm thinking, how did those old monsters know about our whereabouts?" Ningchen asked. Einar was stunned and immediately thought of something. She looked at the heavenly pillar and asked, "It's this?" "Yes." Ningchen nodded and said, "It's most likely." "Then what should we do?" Einar was troubled. Everything has its pros and cons. It depends on how we use it. Ningchen's eyes flashed and said, "The reward promised by the Dawn Moon Tower Master should be here. Before that, we don't need to hide our whereabouts." After speaking, Ningchen waved his right hand, and rays of sword light flew towards the heavenly pillar and carved his name. Einar also ran forward to carve her name. She would do whatever Ningchen did. Not long after the 2 carved their names, an illusory figure in a silver-gray cloak walked out of the void and said, "Little brother Ning, it's not easy to find you. There's nothing you don't know about the Tower Master's abilities. How could it be difficult?" Ningchen said calmly. The Dawn Moon Tower Master smiled faintly and didn't say much on this topic. She flipped her right hand, and a shining source rose and flew towards the expert. "Brother Ning's reward." "Thank you." Ningchen waved his hand and put away the divine spirit source. He scanned it with his spiritual sense and said, "I've troubled the Tower Master to make a trip here. Brother Ning is too polite. It's just a small matter. It's not worth mentioning compared to Brother Ning's help." The Dawn Moon Tower Master smiled. On the side, Ina listened to the 2 talk nonsense and pursed her lips. One was full of evil intentions, and the other was a black-hearted businessman. They were a perfect match. No wonder they could work together so many times. "Little Miss Ina, how old are you this year?" Seeing the little girl's expression, the Dawn Moon Tower Master teased. "I'm not telling you." Ina wrinkled her nose and said, "Heh." The Dawn Moon Tower Master smiled and said, "I still have a jar of 100 flower treasures. If you have time, you can come to the Dawn Moon Tower to taste it." Inar's eyes lit up, and she smiled sweetly. "Thank you, Tower Master." The Waning Moon Tower's mistress smiled. What a fickle little girl. In the next moment, the void swirled and the figure of the Dawn Moon House Master dissipated, disappearing between heaven and earth. "Ningchen, what's the 100-flower treasure?" Seeing the black-hearted merchant leave, Einar asked curiously. "Wine," Ning Chen replied softly, "Let's go. Let's continue on our way." Oh. Ener nodded and followed him. There was no end in sight. On the starry sky path, each of the 49 heavenly cities was lit with flames. Each of the 81 heavenly pillars was engraved with names. From ancient times until now, countless years had passed. Even true immortals had turned into white bones. Only this ancient road had existed since time immemorial. Time was merciless, taking away the glory of the ancient times. The immortal world collapsed, and the path to immortality disappeared. Prosperity turned into silence. Following the death of Yin Yuntian and the other kings in front of the 12 pillars, the 9 kings once again became vacant. However, a new replacement had yet to appear. There was no first place in literature, and there was no second place in martial arts. There were indeed experts who could compete with the 7 kings, but there weren't many. Just as everyone was looking forward to it, a woman in a dark red dress appeared. She held a blood-colored divine furnace in her hand. She hadn't said a single word, but she had forcefully defeated one of the 7 kings. For a moment, the starry sky was shaken. In a short 3 months, the Red King's name had spread throughout the world. When Ning Chen heard this name, he only smiled faintly and didn't comment on it. "Ning Chen, why don't you go find some king to fight?" Ener kicked her legs in a tavern. "I promised the Azure Lotus enforcers that I wouldn't casually fight." Ning Chen smiled. "Then I'll go. If I can't beat him, then you can help me." "That won't count as casually fighting," Ener suggested. "You're just a child. Who would fight with you?" Ning Chen patted the little girl's head. "I've already grown up." Ener covered her head and protested. "You're still a child. All right, it's just an empty title. It's useless even if you want it," Ning Chen said softly. "We're experts. We need to establish ourselves and become famous." Ener stretched out her fist and waved it around. "With your mediocre martial arts, you call yourself an expert? Aren't you embarrassed to say that?" Ning Chen smiled. "Don't keep putting me down. I'm already very powerful." Ener pushed him away unhappily. "Yes, you're the strongest. Expert, are you still going to eat? If not, we'll continue on our way." Ning Chen glanced at the food on the table. "Eat." Hearing that they were going to leave, Ener immediately buried her head in her food, no longer arguing about whether or not she was an expert. At this moment, several powerful auras appeared outside the tavern. The ones at the front were 2 young girls who looked exactly the same. It was difficult to tell them apart. Behind the 2 girls were a group of youths. They all had respectful expressions, and no one dared to take half a step forward. "Please move aside. We want to sit here." The 2 girls walked forward and spoke at the same time. Ener, who was eating enthusiastically, was startled. She didn't understand what was going on. "It's fine." Ning Chen patted her head and comforted her. Then he looked at the 2 girls and calmly said, "Twin kings, so you really are a pair of twins." The man in front of them immediately recognized them. The 2 girls didn't look too surprised. "It seems those 12 idiots didn't die in vain. Unfortunately, your life ends today. I've always wondered why a great sect that could produce 12 peak supreme being disciples wouldn't have a single outstanding powerhouse. Today I've finally seen one. However, are you planning to fight in Heaven City?" Ning Chen calmly asked. "Why not? Do you think the enforcers of the city can protect you?" The 2 girls' eyes turned cold. "Why not?" A purple-robed elder walked over from the distance. After a few steps, he arrived at the tavern. Everyone hastily stood and respectfully bowed. "Twin kings, are you not putting me in your eyes by causing trouble in my Linghui city?" asked Enforcer Linghui coldly. The 2 girls' eyes darkened. They had always heard that this person was protected by the enforcers of the Green Lotus sect. They didn't expect him to still be so in Linghui city. "We don't dare." The 2 of them cupped their fists and bowed. In front of the table, Ener was eating while observing the situation. She secretly gave a thumbs up to the person beside her. He was too amazing. He still had someone protecting him even here. Ning Chen pushed the dishes in front of him to the little girl. Why was her appetite always so good? Fortune favors fools? "Little girl, don't cause trouble. Leave." At this moment, a dignified voice sounded in the 2 girls' ears. The 2 girls frowned. but didn't dare to disobey. They bowed to the enforcer and turned to leave. After the twin kings left, Enforcer Linghui nodded slightly to the young man in front of the table. Without saying anything, his figure faded and he left the tavern. In a quiet place in Linghui City, an illusory figure appeared in front of the two girls. He looked at the two girls and said, "You're not allowed to provoke that young man again." "Why?" The two girls were unwilling to accept this. "No reason. This is an order from the Star Master. No accidents can happen during the opening of the ancient battlefield. The Star Master is already very angry at you for acting without permission. Don't cause any more problems," warned the illusory figure. Yes. Although the two girls were unwilling, they could only accept the order. In the tavern, Einer's mood wasn't affected at all by the interlude. She continued to eat, as if she hadn't eaten for several days. After eating, Einer put down her chopsticks in satisfaction. She then moved her chair closer to Ning Chun and said, "Ning Chun, can you teach me some powerful cultivation techniques? Look at that king just now. He's about the same age as me. He's already called himself a king." Ning Chun raised his hand to wipe away the grease at the corner of Einer's mouth. He explained, "That's a special physique. It's fine if two people work together, but one person can't do much." "That's still better than me," said Einer unhappily. "What do you want to learn? Every time I ask you to practice your sword, you're always lazy. Now you know you're still lacking," said Ning Chun softly. "Is there anything easy to learn? I'll be able to do it once I practice." Einer grabbed Ning Chun's arm. Ning Chun smiled and said, "Maybe, but I don't know how to do it." Hearing his reply, Einer's mouth twitched. After thinking for a while, her eyes suddenly lit up and she said, "Then why don't you teach me 180 years worth of cultivation, and let me directly become an expert? I've only been practicing martial arts for 30 years. Where would I get 180 years worth of cultivation?" Ning Chun unhappily knocked Einer's head. She only knew how to take advantage of the situation. Einer cried out in pain and hugged Ning Chun's arm, not letting him hit her again. "All right, when you're successful in learning the sword and can control it, I'll give it to you," said Ning Chun softly. "I don't want it." Einer pouted and said, "That sword is so ugly." "Then I'll teach you the divine scroll after I get it," said Ning Chun after thinking for a while. "It's too difficult. I don't want to learn it." Einer continued to shake her head. Ning Chun helplessly said, "Then I can't think of anything either. Let's talk about it after you or I think of something, okay?" "Okay." Einer reluctantly agreed. She was envious in her heart. Why was her mistress so powerful without practicing martial arts? Night gradually fell in Linghui City. After traveling for so many days, Ning Chun could not bear to see Einer continue working so hard, so he chose to rest for the night. In the guest room, Einer fell asleep. Ning Chun took out the divine spirit source and thought for a while. Phoenix essence surged out from his surroundings and swallowed the divine spirit's power. In an instant, a strong repulsive force erupted from the divine spirit source, and a tearing pain continuously surged out from his body. Ning Chun lightly groaned and clenched his fist so tightly that his veins popped out. On the bed, Einer fell into a deep sleep. She did not see Hong Yi in front of the window. She was drenched in sweat, and her body could not stop trembling. There were no shortcuts on the path of martial arts. Perhaps there were, but they belonged to those monstrously talented, peerless geniuses. The night was silent. When the sky was about to brighten, Ning Chun tiredly opened his eyes. Phoenix flames rose around him and evaporated his sweat. As expected, he had failed. It was so difficult for a mortal to become an immortal. Chapter 716. In front of the 23rd heavenly pillar, Hong Yi stopped. She looked at the names on it, and then turned to leave. The petite little girl caught up with him and asked, "Still nothing?" "Yes, there are countless branches in the starry sky path." "Slowly search," said Ning Chun calmly. "Isn't she also a king? How come there's no news at all?" asked Einer. "She probably doesn't want to be disturbed," said Ning Chun softly. "Then how long will it take?" asked Einer. "There's no rush. Before we reach the ancient battlefield, all the branches will converge into one. It's only a matter of time before we meet," said Ning Chun. What if she doesn't agree? Iner was troubled. No one would give away such a precious thing just like that. We'll discuss it when the time comes. There's always a way, said Ningchen calmly. The Red Luan starfield was filled with endless fog. At the end of the broken Western immortal world, the heavenly river where the Western Mother Empress had once been buried began to shine. Suddenly, the void violently shook and 4 figures walked out. In an instant, they flew into the distance. Let's split up. We must complete the mission as quickly as possible. Understood. The figures that disappeared from the starry sky could no longer be seen. Only the spatial vortex in the depths of the heavenly river was telling of the dark history of the past. Not long after the 4 of them left, a melodious bell rang out. Ghostly chi filled the air as 3 dragon corpses pulled an immortal palanquin. The woman in the palanquin was wearing a red wedding dress and a red veil. Her lips were red like blood. The immortal corpses patrolled through the 10,000 realms. They had never stopped for even a moment. In front of the 26th heavenly pillar, Ningchen looked at the names one by one, carefully searching for the person he was looking for. Ina was also helping him. She didn't believe that a person could just vanish into thin air. Ah! Suddenly, a startled cry rang out. Ina was pointing at one of the names on the heavenly pillar. You found it? Asked Ningchen. No, look at whose name is it? Asked Ina anxiously. Ningchen looked in the direction Ina was pointing at. When he saw it, he smiled. Mu Qianshang. I've already seen it. Don't worry about him. Let's continue searching. Ah! Oh! Seeing that the former did not take it seriously, Ina's excitement dissipated, and she continued searching. An unknown distance away, a young man in a black and white cloak was walking forward. Beside him, a man in purple clothes was walking together. Along the way, neither of them paid attention to the other. After walking for a short distance, a fork in the road appeared. The 2 of them looked at each other and directly chose a path to take. It was really awkward to travel with a man. It was better to break up. 10 days later, halfway through the ancient path, on a desolate great star, a boundless desert blocked the path ahead. The scorching sun hung high in the sky, and there was not the slightest trace of life. Ningchen. As Ina walked, she tugged at the sleeve of the person beside her and asked, Your friend is here. Why do you look like you don't care at all? Ningchen stopped and smiled. I'm happy, but there are too many things to do, and I don't have time to care about them. Those fellows aren't people who know their place. There are many experts on this path, and they probably don't have time to find us. If we can meet, it'll be fate. If we can't, then we'll go our separate ways. Them? Could it be that you saw other names? Asked Ina, puzzled. Yes, they're all here. Ningchen nodded. Ina's eyes flashed with dissatisfaction. None of these fellows were normal. They had come from so far away, but not a single one of them had come to find them. After walking for half a day, the weather in the desert became hotter and hotter. Waves of heat that surpassed the limits of what they could endure came wave after wave. Ningchen didn't feel anything, but the little girl beside him couldn't bear it. Sweat dripped down Ina's forehead, wetting her hair and sticking to her face. She felt extremely uncomfortable. It's hot. Ina raised her head. This great star is basically a desert, and we won't be able to leave for a while. Just treat it as cultivating, said Ningchen softly. Why aren't you hot at all? Asked Ina. When have you ever heard of a phoenix being afraid of heat? Smiled Ningchen. That's not fair. Heh. Ningchen smiled. It'll be fair in a bit. Once the sun sets, you won't feel the heat anymore. Just as the 2 of them were speaking, a white-robed novice monk was walking forward. His face was gentle, and he held prayer beads in his hand as he chanted Buddhist scriptures. Even from a distance, Ningchen could sense an aura coming from off in the distance. Looking over, he saw a flash of light. An expert from one of the Buddhist schools. At the same time, the novice monk also looked over. It was none other than the wisdom Marquis. Suddenly, a heaven-shaking, earth-shattering sound rang out from the desert up ahead. It was so powerful that the entire desert began to shake. Ningchen sensed something, and his eyes narrowed. What a powerful aura. Let's go. As soon as he finished speaking, there was a flash of light. Ningchen took the little girl beside him and rushed forward. A few hundred kilometers away, a red light appeared, and Ning Chen emerged. When he saw the corpses on the ground, his expression sank. How was this possible? Based on their auras, each of the corpses was at the immortal trampling level. They were clearly peak experts of the younger generation. Although they weren't quite on the same level as the kings, they weren't far off. And yet, they hadn't even had a chance to fight back before they were killed. Obviously, whoever had done this had to be an expert who surpassed the level of the executors. Unfortunately, the executors were stationed in Heaventown, so there was no way they would show up here. Amitba. At this time, the novice monk arrived. When he saw the scene, he couldn't help but sigh. Wisdom Marquis, let these benefactors rest in peace, said the novice monk, looking at the red-robed young man next to him. Hearing this name again, Ning Chen's eyes narrowed. You know me. Everyone on Celestial Mountain knows the name of the Wisdom Marquis, said the novice monk calmly. And you are Buddha's son? Asked Ning Chen. He had long since heard that there was a prodigy in Celestial Mountain, the homeland of Western Buddha. Boom! Even as the two of them were talking, the sound of a huge battle rang out in the distance. Then it stopped in an instant. Ning Chen's expression sank. Without hesitation, his figure flickered as he rushed over. 300 kilometers away, the ground was cracked and filled with devastation. Not a single place was intact. It was a shocking scene. It was still a single move. Looking at the corpses on the ground, Ning Chen's expression grew more and more serious. This was going to be troublesome. A moment ago, he hadn't dared to be certain, but now he was certain that a terrifying expert had come to the ancient road of the stars. At the same time, many illusory figures appeared in a majestic hall in an unknown region. Their eyes were filled with seriousness. Everyone, you've all received the news, right? Asked the person in the middle. Yes. Everyone nodded. Young experts have died on the ancient road of the stars. Furthermore, none of them lasted more than 3 moves. It would appear that a power unknown to us has entered the ancient road of the stars, said the leader of the Ziwei Starfield. According to the traces left behind on the battlefield, the people who attacked were at least at the mid-corporeal realm. They might even have been at the true realm, said Shinji. Can you deduce which powers martial techniques belong to? Asked the leader of the Luo Jia Starfield. I've already tried, but... At this point, Shinji's expression turned serious as he continued. I have never seen their martial arts before. They seem to have appeared out of nowhere. What is their goal? It's definitely not just to kill, said the leader of the All Heaven Starfield. No matter what, we can't just sit by and watch. Everyone, it's time for us to act. We must eliminate these people before they cause a panic, said the person in the middle. Amen. Everyone nodded. The next moment, the phantoms dissipated. The divine armaments were stopped by the people in charge of the Ziwei Segmentum when they were about to leave. Shinji, do you know why the Dawn Moon Pavilion's master hasn't appeared? I don't know. Shinji shook his head. I haven't heard any news about him in a very long time. That person's character has always been difficult to understand. Perhaps there's something that interests him. If you receive news about him, tell him to hurry over. This is a crucial moment. We cannot allow any accidents to happen, said the leader of the Ziwei Starfield. Amen. Shinji nodded and replied. In the desert, Ning Chen, who was chasing after the unknown expert, was moving faster and faster. When the sky was about to turn dark, he finally saw a shadow. Oh! Sensing that someone was approaching from behind, the black-clothed figure stopped. Without saying anything, his figure flashed past, and with a flip of his palm, he seized the soul. Ning Chen dodged the palm and clenched his right hand. A white light appeared and the soft sword twisted, wrapping around the black-clothed figure's arm. With a loud bang, the black-clothed figure erupted with power. He shook off the sword and sent another palm strike towards Ning Chen's chest. Azure Dragon Descent. Ning Chen seized the black-clothed figure's arm and pressed down with his left hand. The two figures rapidly fell to the ground. Not bad. The black-clothed figure stepped in the air. His body bent at a strange angle and escaped. With a boom, the ground cracked. Ning Chen's eyes narrowed. He stepped forward again. In close combat, every move was dangerous. The two of them, with their terrifying combat power, were unable to determine the winner. This was a martial art he had never seen before. It was strange and cruel. Ning Chen's face darkened. Where did this person come from? Dark 8 Desolation. The black-clothed figure did not want to fight for a long time. He raised his hand and used a killing move. Suddenly the black light expanded rapidly. A cold and heavy destructive power pressed down. The two of them instantly turned into nothingness. Eastern Rising Sun. In the extreme darkness, phoenixes gathered and rose, shining like divine suns. The martial art of the heavenly book had reappeared in the world. The two extremes collided. The sky fell and the ground fell. Endless sand and dust flew. In the aftermath, red lightning flashed and the star soul appeared. It was extremely fast. With a ripping sound, the black-clothed figure disappeared. When Ning Chen looked back, the black-clothed figure had disappeared. Ning Chen's eyes narrowed. He looked into the distance. A cold light flashed in his eyes. What a strange movement technique. The battle ended. In the distance, Ina rushed over, panting. She looked at the red-clothed figure in the night and asked anxiously, "Where is he?" "He ran away," Ning Chen replied. Ina was stunned. Her small face showed a trace of confusion. How could it be? With Ning Chen's strength, the person who could escape from him would at least be an expert at the middle stage of the corporeal realm. If this was the case, didn't it mean that there were experts who were comparable, or even stronger than law enforcers on this path? It seems that this path won't be peaceful in the future. Ning Chen looked into the distance. His eyes lit up. In the battle just now, the black-clothed figure had obviously held back. It was difficult for Ning Chen to estimate his true strength. Chapter 717. The ancient path in the starry sky changed overnight. It was unknown how many young experts disappeared from the ancient path, falling into the mortal world. It had happened so suddenly that no one knew about it. Apart from a small number of people, no one knew that something had happened on the ancient road of stars. 10 days later, in a heavenly city, the sounds of battle echoed throughout the universe. Before long, the sound stopped, and a figure fell from the sky. The death of an executor of the ancient road shocked the world. Seal the news. Don't cause panic. When the leaders of the various planetary systems received the report, they immediately ordered that the news of the executor's death be sealed. No matter what, the ancient road of stars couldn't fall into chaos. However, there was no such thing as an impenetrable wall in the world. Although the news was sealed, many people still learned about the executor's death. Everyone knew that the executors of the ancient road of stars were all at least in the mid-corporeal realm. There were even peerless experts at the peak of the corporeal realm. No matter where they went, they would be overlords. No one could harm them unless they were at the same level. Now that the executor had died, it meant that there were experts who far surpassed the younger generation on the ancient road of stars. Even the 9 kings were no longer invincible. In front of the 16th heavenly pillar, a woman in green saw the familiar name on it and turned to leave. At the same time, at the end of the desert, the 33rd heavenly pillar pierced the sky. In front of it, Ning Chen's eyes flickered as he looked at the name on it. He had finally found it. Ji Yuqing, the most mysterious of the 9 kings. The Ji clan of the spirit Voiji was said to have the bloodline of a god. It was a true colossus with tens of thousands of years of history. It was said that there was more than one true realm expert overseeing it. Most importantly, the person who had been imprisoned in the immortal graveyard had said that an expert from the Ji clan had died in the Forbidden Land 10,000 years ago, leaving behind half a move of the god's scroll. Ji Yuqing was the daughter of the Ji clan's holy lord, and her status was extraordinary. If the god's scroll was still in the Ji clan, then it was very likely that she had cultivated it. Ning Chen. Ina shook the arm of the person beside her and said softly, "Aren't you worried about your friends?" "They're fine." Ning Chen looked at the sky pillar in front of him and said, "Unless a true realm expert makes a move, it won't be easy to kill them. When it comes to survival and escaping, they are better than anyone else." After experiencing large and small battles, even battles between gods, these friends of his no longer cared about the pride of martial artists. If they couldn't win, they would just run. Oh. Hearing the former's reply, Einar was relieved. It was good that he was fine. Let's go. Her name is here. If we hurry, we might be able to catch up to her soon, Ningchen said softly. Einar nodded lightly and agreed. Half a month later, a huge battle broke out in an ancient heavenly city. Even as the executors of the ancient road were seriously injured, one of the doyens from the planetary system arrived and forced the mysterious newcomer to retreat. After the battle, the ancient path of the starry sky calmed down again. Within a month, no more young powerhouses or law enforcers were killed. In an unknown hall, the Star Domain Venerables walked out to discuss matters. Shinji, how are things going on your side? The leader of the Z-Way Galaxy asked. Nothing out of the ordinary, Shinji replied. Everything is normal here as well. The person in charge of the Luo Jia Star Zone replied. One by one, they began to share information. Speaking of which, it seems likely that they've retreated, said the leader of the Heaven Mist Star Zone. That's not likely. Shinji shook his head. Those people are extraordinarily strong, and they clearly came with a goal in mind. There's no way they'd just leave. Turn from light to dark, said the leader of the Z-Way Galaxy Star Zone. Everyone's expressions sank. That seemed to be the only possibility. If they've managed to sneak onto the ancient path, as long as they don't go all out, we won't be able to find them. It's really troublesome, said the leader of the Heaven Mist Star Zone. Have the law enforcers in the various heavenly cities be more vigilant. Try to track them down as much as possible. Don't act rashly and alert them. If they find anything, notify us immediately, said the leader of the Spirit Void Star Zone. Everyone nodded. Until they knew who those people were. That was the best way to proceed. In the Eastern Divine Prefecture, space rippled as a gray-robed figure appeared. As soon as he appeared, his divine sense swept across the entire land. The Infernal King's pure land has actually withered to such an extent. The gray-robed figure looked down and said indifferently. Then he flipped his right hand, and wind and clouds gathered as he slammed his palm down. With an earth-shattering bang, the human world was instantly wiped out and turned to dust. The Divine Prefecture, which had experienced several calamities, was once again plunged into misery and suffering. The three emperors of the Xia Kingdom, the Northern Ming Kingdom, and the Barbarian Kingdom walked out. Looking at the figure in the sky, their expressions darkened. This was troublesome. At the same time, in the homeland of the Western Buddha, the Northern Polar Region, Zhongzhou and Nanling, the cultivators above the three disasters all looked at the East continent in shock. Heaven's will. On the blessed Buddha mountain in the homeland of the Western Buddha, the Light Elder sighed softly. He took a step forward and rushed toward the east. Lingling Piaosu, from now on, the West Jade Mountain is in your hands. On the West Jade Mountain, the West Jade Lord said. Then she stepped forward and disappeared. In the Heavenly Music Pavilion, the Heavenly Music Pavilion Master looked in the direction of the Eastern Divine Prefecture. Was the calamity about to befall them again? In the Divine Prefecture, flames of war raged. A calamity comparable to the descent of the gods had descended. Wherever the gray-robed figure passed, the land below was scorched. Amitba. At this moment, golden light shone brightly in the sky. Countless divine lights crisscrossed, forming a huge Buddha statue. From the Buddha, the Light Elder walked out and stood in front of the gray-robed man. After calming the flames of war, the Buddha's light shone brighter, strengthening the Buddha's divine power. Reckless bald donkey, the gray-robed man said coldly. Light Elder, I didn't expect you to come. As he spoke, a lotus bloomed in the void. The West Jade Lord walked out. There was a faint smile on her beautiful face. She was like the Guanyin who had saved the world. No one could bear to blaspheme her. Dong. At this moment, the bell rang again and again, dispelling the flames of war in the mortal world. The sound of the great path. The West Jade Lord looked toward the distant north. There was a flash of brilliance. Without a doubt, the Heavenly Music Pavilion Master was helping them. No one else is coming? Then let's begin. The gray-robed man said coldly. He flipped his right hand. With a loud bang, black thunder and fire descended from the sky. The terrifying destructive power continued to spread, shocking everyone. The 3 realizations of saving the world. Bodhisattva repentance of 10,000 demons. The West Jade Lord waved her slender hand. She raised her cultivation to the limit. In an instant, countless golden lotuses bloomed and fell. Buddhist divine power gathered to meet the destructive power. On the other side, the Light Elder also used his Buddha's energy to calm the flames of war. 12 Buddha statues appeared out of thin air, forming a holy wall in front of the mortal world. Your Buddhas are so laughable. The gray-robed man pressed down with his right hand. Black thunder and fire spread out. In the rumbling, the 1,000 lotuses shattered, and the holy wall collapsed. The aftershocks came. The sound of the great path dissipated most of the power. However, some of it still fell. The 2 Buddhas retreated a few steps. They vomited blood. The 3 of them had entered the treading celestial realm. However, they still couldn't block one attack. The difference in strength was like the difference between heaven and earth. Lotus Sacred Technique, 1,000 Lotus Demon Lock. Even though she knew the cruelty of the truth, the West Jade Lord's eyes didn't waver. She activated all the vital essence in her body. Blood lotuses formed around her, condensing into chains that locked the person in front of her. The West Jade Lord's golden light turned blood red. She looked like a bodhisattva, turning into an asura. Buddhas and demons had always accompanied each other. Bodhisattvas killed and fell without boundaries. When the Light Elder saw this, he also sighed softly. His eyes opened and closed. The youth's face instantly aged. His white hair danced in the wind. The 2 Buddhas sacrificed themselves to kill and protect. Fighting with your life? You don't have that right. The gray-robed man snorted coldly. His figure flashed, directly shaking off the chains. He turned his palm and attacked the asura in front of him. There was a violent tremor. Blood splashed everywhere. The West Jade Lord retreated a few steps again. Her Buddhist robes were dyed red. Below, shockwaves rippled out. Cities collapsed one after another under the extreme might, completely destroyed. The calamity of the end of the world. Cries shook the heavens. Death was everywhere. It was bleak and dazzling. The horrible memories that she didn't want to remember appeared in front of her again. However, this time, there was no young man in plain clothes who sacrificed his life. Wu Ho, where are you? An old man who had experienced the divine tribulation knelt on the ground. Tears streamed down his face as he begged Wu Ho to return. On the ground, one by one, the people of the Xia dynasty knelt down. They trembled and cried, hoping for a miracle to happen. 100 people, 1,000 people, 10,000 people, 100,000 people, 1,000,000 people. Whether it was the survivors of the divine tribulation, or the children who had only heard of the legends, at this moment, they all knelt down helplessly, praying for a miracle. With a rumble, lightning streaked across the sky, illuminating the dusky ground. In the sky, blood fell like rain. The 2 Buddhas were at the end of their road, unable to stop the calamity of the end of the world. 3 realizations of crossing the world, leaving 100 lives and falling into the cycle of reincarnation. There was no turning back. In the battle, the West Jade Lord sacrificed her life. Her strongest move pierced through the dark clouds in the sky. A huge blood lotus bloomed, blooming to the extreme. On the other side, the Light Elder, whose face was getting older and older, also used the last of his strength. Cracks spread on the beacon in his hand, reaching the limit of what he could bear. The 2 Buddhas sacrificed themselves to protect others, gathered their final strength. Bloody light and golden light intersected. It was so dazzling that even gods and ghosts were shocked. Wu Ho, please come back. Helpless cries, one after another, spread throughout the Xia dynasty, spread throughout the divine prefecture. The psyche of millions of people gathered, turning into a bright lamp that illuminated the world, pointing out a bright path. Rumble, another bolt of lightning fell, dazzling the eyes. In the void, the black flame in the hands of the gray-robed man rose to the extreme. An unprecedented destructive power spread out. Immediately, the sky changed color, and the whole world trembled. It's over. With that, the black flame descended. Its violent power caused the sky to collapse and the earth to shake. 3,000 miles of sword snow. At this moment the dark clouds dispersed. A silhouette in plain clothes descended from the sky. His body was covered in snow, and he turned his palm to block the flame. With a loud rumble, the two moves collided. The aftermath of the collision caused the world to turn into nothingness. Chapter 7:18. In the sky above the divine prefecture, clouds surged as a silhouette in plain clothes descended upon the world, using the faith of all living beings as a beacon. The falling snowflakes blocked the black flames in the sky. Rumbling sounds could be heard as the world turned upside down. In the aftermath of the shockwaves, white clothes appeared. The familiar back and spotless white clothes indicated the identity of the person who had arrived. That is, the people were shocked, and then tears fell from their eyes. The heavens were protecting the divine prefecture. Woohoo! On the ground, as far as the eye could see, the old man knelt down and pulled the woman beside him. The woman knelt down and pulled the child beside her. In the next moment, the deafening sound of kneeling rang out like thunder, echoing throughout the entire divine prefecture. Greetings, woohoo! It was a shocking scene. The man in gray's expression darkened. Who is this person? Get up. In the void, Sui said calmly. As soon as she finished speaking, thousands, tens of thousands, millions of people got up. The fear on their faces disappeared, and hope was reignited. In the imperial palace of the Xia dynasty, looked at the figure in the sky. His handsome face that was no longer young flashed with excitement. Master had finally returned. In the northern Ming imperial court, Mingyu, who was dressed in imperial clothes, looked into the distance. Her beautiful eyes overflowed with tears. He had returned. Who are you? In the sky, the man in gray said coldly. The Xia dynasty's Jiming Marquis. Ningchen said slowly. A marquis in the human world is actually so capable. I admire you. The man in gray said coldly. Then with a flip of his right hand, thousands of Xian thunders fell from the sky. The destructive power surged. Seeing this, Ningchen narrowed his eyes. His figure flashed, and with a flip of his palm, he sent the severely injured Light Elder and West Jade Lord out of the battle. I'd like to see how you're going to stop me by yourself. As soon as he finished speaking, Li Tianxiong's palm pressed down. Suddenly, the sand was like a wave, and the thunder spread in all directions. Boom! The extreme power attacked, but Ningchen did not dodge. He gathered the power in his palm and rolled out in all directions. His peerless foundation met the destructive Xian thunders head-on. With a shocking sound, the sky collapsed and the earth caved in. The two strong forces did not retreat. They were actually evenly matched. Extraordinary opponent, come again! Li Tianxiong stepped forward, and the power of his fist was unparalleled. The black flame roared, and the divine power shook the world. Ningchen didn't show any signs of weakness. Wind and snow swirled around his body. He opened and closed his palms, causing the sky to rise and the earth to sink. In close combat, every punch landed on the flesh. Unparalleled cultivation clashed with peerless foundations. Sounds of tremors resounded throughout the universe. There was not a single place within 1,000 miles that was unharmed. There was only battle to the death. Soul-devouring palm. The battle was hard to determine. Li Tianxiong turned his fist into a palm. The gray evil qi spread out, and the terrifying power rose rapidly. Wherever the evil qi passed, the surroundings turned into darkness. This was the strongest opponent he had ever seen before. Ningchen's eyes didn't change. He clenched his left hand, and the remembrance blade appeared. The pure white long and narrow blade shone with a blue light, illuminating the world. Scroll of heaven, absolving heaven of sin. Nian Qing waved her hand, and the void in all directions shattered. A powerful suction force spread out, continuously swallowing the evil qi that was spreading in the sky. Heavenly Book. Seeing the former's martial arts, Li Tianxiong's expression turned serious. He raised his cultivation by 30%. Evil qi gathered, and an evil weapon sealed in a stone scabbard appeared. Its might shook the universe. The similarly long and narrow blade was shrouded in gray qi. It was bone-chilling. Before the stone scabbard was opened, its ferocious might shook the heavens. Li Tianxiong raised his hand and held the evil weapon. Fierce thunder from the 9 heavens descended, and the stone seal collapsed. In an instant, the world within 1,000 miles darkened rapidly. An indescribable and terrifying pressure surged out, destroying the mountains and sinking the earth. In a flash, the two blades collided. It was fast and heavy. Two completely different martial arts had different comprehensions. One was domineering, while the other was free and unrestrained. It was a matchless battle that was rarely seen in the world. 1,000 miles away, two figures walked over. The man in front was wearing a silver-gray cloak. He had sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes. The fierce temperament of a peerless expert was fully displayed at this moment. "Building master, aren't you going to help?" Hong Wuan looked at the battle in the distance and asked worriedly. "No need." The Dawn Moon building master shook her head and said, "Watch the battle carefully. There aren't many battles of this level." Jiming Marquis, you have made me look at you in a new light again. It turned out that other than the phoenix body and the demon body, there was an even more powerful original body left in the world. One body, 3 transformations. Such a technique was truly terrifying. However, the young man in front of him was even more terrifying. Only today did he understand why a young man, who had only learned martial arts for 30 years, could have such a shocking battle strength. Cultivation was limited by talent, and was determined by the heavens. However, battle strength was constantly accumulated after experiencing life and death situations. It was determined by people. At this moment, in the distant horizon, the battle between the two experts became more and more intense. It was supposed to be the happiest moment in one's life to meet a worthy opponent. However, one wanted to destroy while the other wanted to protect. There was no turning back. The intertwining blade lights were stunning. They didn't yield an inch and fought head-on until the yellow springs opened. Craftsmanship is extremely dangerous. Not bad. After fighting for a long time, it was difficult for Ning Fan to gain the upper hand. A trace of admiration flashed through Li Tianxiong's eyes. It had been a long time since he met such an opponent. The evil weapon waved again and the 9 heavens fell. The power of the true realm was revealed. Heavenly scroll, unparalleled in the world. Ning Chen's figure flashed past. The blade lights illuminated the 9 provinces. Rays of blue light whistled through the air, threatening to kill. Li Tianxiong shook the blade lights with a flip of his palm. With his supreme cultivation, he forcefully destroyed the blade lights that filled the sky. After one move, the evil weapon chopped down. A vast and berserk might pressed down on Ning Chen. The evil weapon descended. However, Ning Chen saw Ning Chen turn around and turn into a watery light. As the light flickered, it was hard to distinguish her. "Oh!" Li Tianxiong squinted and took a step forward, charging forward again. The evil weapon chopped down, and the watery light scattered. On the other side, Ningyi reformed. Her figure turned around, and the blade pressed down. Li Tianxiong turned around and blocked the blade with the evil weapon. The watery light flickered again, and Ningyi disappeared. What a strange movement technique! Li Tianxiong spread out his spiritual sense and covered the surrounding 50 kilometers, searching for traces of Ning Chen. After one breath, Ningyi reappeared. A cold light flashed in Li Tianxiong's eyes. The evil weapon chopped down, destroying everything within 50 kilometers. The blades clashed and the shockwaves howled. Ning Chen used the momentum to retreat. He held his fingers together, and his aura instantly changed. Earth scroll, earth destruction, mountains destruction. The ground rolled, and the wind and clouds turned chaotic. Amid the raging sandstorm, many sword lights soared into the sky, engulfing the people in front. Li Tianxiong's eyes sank. He stepped forward and swung his blade. The 10,000 swords shattered, unable to get close. One sword formless. The shockwaves howled, and Li Tianxiong's spiritual sense was restricted. Just at this moment, Ningyi disappeared. When she reappeared, she was already in front of Li Tianxiong. A sword with blood-colored patterns appeared. The patterns spread out of the sword and pierced into Li Tianxiong's arm. The knowing destiny sword appeared, and the 4 origins surged. The sword intent continuously gathered and surged wildly, breaking toward Li Tianxiong's chest. When the killing intent approached, Li Tianxiong's pupils constricted. His figure flashed, and he subconsciously retreated. 300 meters away, a gray figure gathered, avoiding the fatal killing move. Suddenly, a streak of eye-catching red fell from the white sky. It was so dazzling in the wind and snow. The battle situation was clear, and for the first time, it was extreme. It turns out that your forte is not the saber. Blood gushed out of Li Tianxiong's chest. He could not hide the shock in his eyes. It turned out that the previous battle was just a trick. When dealing with an expert like you, fighting strength is the greatest unwise choice. Ning Chen said indifferently. He waved his sword, and the blood fell into the dust. Chapter 719. In the sky above the divine land, the battle situation changed. Caught off guard, Li Tianxiong was heavily injured for the first time. 30% of his meridians were destroyed. The blood that flowed out dyed his clothes red. It was glaring. You are unforgivable. Li Tianxiong couldn't suppress the anger in his eyes. He shouted, and the gray air around him burst out and rushed into the sky. With a rumble, lightning fell and lit up the dark sky. An unusually heavy pressure quickly spread out, making it hard for people to breathe. Black patterns appeared on Li Tianxiong's face. They were strange and cold. The power that was beyond human understanding healed his injured body in an instant. Ning Chen looked at the person in front of him and said, "You are not human." It's too late to know that now. Li Tianxiong's eyes turned black. He took a step forward, and his body flashed like a black thunderbolt. He was extremely fast. He waved his evil weapon and split the sky. The saber light collided. Bai flew out, and his body stopped. He turned back in an instant. The sword was destroyed, and the wind and thunder roared. Fast, fast, fast. The sword was hanging in the air. The sky above the divine land changed. The saber and sword moved together. Bai fought bravely like a god. His body rose rapidly. Below, thousands of people looked at Bai in the sky with tears in their eyes. After so many years, Wu Ho once again risked his life to stand in front of them. It was like reincarnation. They had returned to the time when the divine tribulation came. God bless Wu Ho. One by one, the people closed their eyes and prayed sincerely. They hoped that the heavens would open their eyes and protect their Wu Ho. Waves of psyche power rose into the sky and gathered. The enormous power poured into the pure white saber. Ning Chen waved his sword and pushed away the people in front of him. He looked at the people below and said calmly, "Thank you." With the addition of faith, his power increased. The saber light shone brightly, and the purple aura spread for 3,000 miles. Li Tianxiong received the attack, but he felt an extremely heavy pressure. His body flew out immediately. Ning Chen stepped forward and quickly caught up. The four origins on the sword appeared. Wind, water, thunder, and fire roared and surged. The purple aura gathered, and the heavenly book combined again. Heaven and earth together, life and death defying fate. The saber and sword combined, and turned into a cloud that pressed down on Li Tianxiong. Seeing this, Li Tianxiong's eyes darkened. He turned his palm to absorb the spiritual qi from all directions, blocking the heavenly book martial arts. Great rumbling sounds shook the earth and sky. The remaining shockwaves spread outwards, destroying everything within 1,000 li. This was the most powerful battle. His dyed gray clothes rapidly recovered. His regenerative ability surpassed his understanding, making this life and death battle even more desperate. The sound of the sword rang out, and the desolate blood illuminated the universe. The saber light whistled, and the purple light shook the 9 provinces. Li Tianxiong, who had regained his original appearance, was invincible with his special martial arts body. However, Jiming Marquis, who had returned to the divine prefecture, was even more fearless with the faith of all living beings. Something's wrong. All of a sudden, Li Tianxiong's mind shook as an indescribable sense of danger assaulted him. Instantly, his figure retreated rapidly and moved 300 meters away. A race with such powerful recovery abilities, it really makes me curious. As he spoke, the space behind Li Tianxiong swirled, and a man in a silver-white cloak walked out. His aura was sharp, and he had the bearing of a peerless expert. The silk string rang, and a mist of blood gushed out. Li Tianxiong felt a pain in his heart. He looked down and saw that a silver silk string had pierced through his body, and blood was dripping down. The first sound of the netherworld. The house master of the Dawn Moon Tower moved her right hand, and the silk string vibrated. Blood filled the sky like a tide, dyeing the void red. With a muffled groan, Li Tianxiong's pupils constricted. He waved his saber to cut the silk string, but it did not break. 7 rulings of the netherworld, judgment of the third night. The silk string rang again, and the king of hell took the life. The house master of the Dawn Moon Tower waved her right hand, and the heavenly soul silk moved rhythmically, instantly destroying the martial meridians of the cultivator. The battle had changed rapidly. When they came back to their senses, the battle was already over. Li Tianxiong's heart was bleeding, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. The next moment, an earth-shattering explosion sounded, and the two in the battle were both sent flying. Thousands of meters away, the two steadied themselves and looked at the space black hole formed by the self-explosion. Their eyes darkened. After a moment, Ning Chen shifted his gaze to the figure on the other side and said, "Sir, don't you want to give an explanation?" "Sorry." The house master of the Dawn Moon Tower revealed a smile and said, "I didn't expect that I wouldn't be able to stop it in time." Brilliance flashed through Ning Chen's eyes. It seemed that after the Netherworld King's barrier was broken, the inner world would also change. "Sir, you are a guest from afar. Why don't you come to my residence to rest for a while?" Ning Chen said. "Deference is no substitute for obedience," the house master of the Dawn Moon Tower replied. Ning Chen nodded and walked down from the sky. He arrived in front of the 2 Buddhas who were heavily injured and on the verge of death. After thinking for a moment, he waved his hand, and wind and snow drifted down, freezing the 2 Buddhas. In the imperial city of Grand Xia, figures knelt down one after another, respectfully welcoming the return of the Marquis. "Welcome, Marquis. Welcome, Marquis." Deafening sounds of kneeling resounded through the imperial city. In the distance, Sui walked over, her expression calm, without the slightest ripple. Beside the house master of the Dawn Moon Tower, Hong Wan's face was filled with shock. Was this his true appearance? At this moment, hundreds of officials appeared in front of them. The leader wore a dragon robe and had a handsome face. He was the current emperor of Grand Xia. "Master." The excitement in Qi Er's eyes could not be concealed. He quickly walked forward and bowed. Ning Chen stopped. Looking at the handsome young figure in front of him, a gentle smile appeared on his face. He had grown up, and was no longer the little fellow who was chased around the courtyard by Ning Shi. "Greetings, Marquis." The hundreds of officials knelt down without exception. Even the most unruly young officials did not dare to be rash at this moment. This was the Marquis of Grand Xia, the teacher of the emperor, and even a legend. "Stand up." Ning Chen glanced at the hundreds of officials and calmly said. Soon after, he helped the emperor up and said with a gentle expression, "I saw everything on the way here. You did very well." Grand Xia had regained its former glory, and had truly walked out from the heavy injuries of the divine tribulation. "It's because Master taught me well." It was rare for Qi Er to embarrassedly scratch his nose and reply, "As an emperor, you cannot lack methods. However, you cannot lack benevolence. For Grand Xia to be able to recover so quickly, it means that you have truly worked hard." Mingri and Zi's efforts were not in vain. While speaking, a trace of emotion flashed through Ning Chen's eyes. During those difficult times, he was fortunate to have Xia Mingri, Xia Zi, and seniors who risked their lives to protect their beliefs. "Go back. Master still has guests to entertain." Ning Chen patted the shoulder of the young emperor before him and walked towards the Marquis' residence. Looking at the leaving figure, a young general among the hundreds of officials heaved a sigh of relief. This Marquis gave them too much pressure. There was not only one Marquis in Grand Xia, but there were 7 in the current generation. However, compared to the one in front of them, the difference was not small. Could it be that the previous Marquis were also powerful? Yui looked clearly. This is the guardian of Grand Xia, the true Marquis. In the future, whether or not you can catch up to his footsteps will depend on your willpower and hard work, an old general said. Yes, the young general replied softly. His eyes were shining as he looked at the leaving figure. The waves in his heart could not be concealed. There would be a day when he would also become a Marquis, a hero revered by the people. Marquis' residence. After not returning for many years, everything was different from before. Unfamiliar faces were filled with respect and nervousness as they knelt in the residence to welcome him. In the backyard, a pretty young lady was cleaning. She was the granddaughter of the old housekeeper. Her name was Yulian. She had just entered the residence for 2 years and was in charge of cleaning the backyard. Ningchen walked over, causing Yulian to jump in fright. She hurriedly went up to stop him, not allowing him to enter. Her grandfather had said before that no one was allowed to enter the backyard. Xiao Lian quickly moved aside. This is the Marquis. Seeing this, the new housekeeper hurriedly went up and reprimanded her. Hearing this, Yulian trembled and immediately knelt down in fright. This servant did not know. Marquis, please spare me. Ningchen lightly smiled and said, those who do not know are not to blame. Go prepare some tea. An important guest has arrived. Yes. Yulian secretly heaved a sigh of relief and respectfully accepted the order. The study room was still the same as before. No one had touched it at all. Ningchen brought the 2 of them in. Not long later, Yulian came in and poured tea for the 3 of them before quietly retreating. Outside the backyard, when the housekeeper saw Yulian walk out, he also heaved a sigh of relief. The Marquis' return was too sudden. They were not prepared at all. Uncle, Yulian called out apologetically. She had never seen the Marquis before. She did not expect the Marquis to be so young. He seemed to be only a few years older than her. Xiao Lian, there cannot be a next time. The housekeeper's face became gentler and said, but there is no need to be afraid. The Marquis' personality is gentle. He will never easily punish people. Regardless of what other people say, our Marquis is the best Marquis. Yulian lightly nodded. Inside the study room, it was slightly cold. The entire residence had a stove, except for the study room. Other than the master of the study room, no one knew why. Should I call you Brother Ning or Jiming Marquis? The Dawn Moon Tower master looked at the person in front of her and faintly smiled. Won't you first introduce yourself and this lady? Ningchen glanced at the 2 of them and said, does Sir Ning really not recognize us? On the side, Hong Wan could not help but ask. Oh, it seems that the 2 of you have already seen my phoenix body. Sorry, before the 2 bodies merge, I cannot know the memories of the phoenix body. I wonder if Sir and Miss can explain it in detail, Ningchen calmly said. The Dawn Moon Tower master's lips slightly curved. Of course. Outside the study room, the sky gradually darkened. Yulian would go in every hour to pour new tea for the 3 of them, before silently retreating. She did not dare to disturb them. The Dawn Moon Tower master recounted everything that happened before and after the 2 bodies. She did not hide anything, because there was no need to. Cooperation must be built on the basis of mutual trust. The person in front of her would know everything once the 3 bodies merged. Concealing it now would only cause suspicion. Only fools would do things that did not make up for the losses. Ancient battlefield time restriction. Ningchen raised his tea and lightly took a sip. Soon after, he looked at the person in front of him and calmly said, Tower Master, what is your purpose in coming to the inner world this time? Chapter 720. In the Jiming Marquis residence, the sky was already dark. In the study, the candlelight flickered, and the tea on the table had been changed countless times. Yulian was busy coming and going. She was still a bit excited and nervous. She had heard many legends about the Marquis, but this was her first time seeing the Marquis in person. He was gentle, indifferent, and approachable. He was completely different from the heartless people in the legends. At the same time, all the forces in the imperial city, and even the entire divine land, were paying close attention to the Jiming Marquis residence. He was back. What was his purpose this time? In the study of the Marquis residence, the flickering candlelight gradually burned out. Yulian came in and replaced it with a new one. She unconsciously looked at the Marquis, and a trace of curiosity flashed across her beautiful face. In front of the table, the two sat facing each other. White steam rose from the tea on the table, The atmosphere was surprisingly calm. Purpose. The Dawn Moon Tower Master took a sip of tea and put it down. She looked at the person in front of her and said, "Heavenly Book." Oh. Ning Chen's eyes flashed with surprise and said, "It seems that the Tower Master knows a lot about the Heavenly Book." "You flatter me." The Dawn Moon Tower smiled faintly and said, "The origin of the Heavenly Book is very mysterious. No one dares to say that they know a lot about it. I only know a little about it." "Tower Master is too modest." Ning Chen picked up the teacup and said, "The fact that the inner world's boundary was broken is a secret that few people know. I have already told the venerables of the Tianfu planet not to spread this news. It's already not easy for the Tower Master to know this secret. Moreover, the Tower Master immediately came to the inner world from the sky beyond sky. Clearly, you are very sure that the Heavenly Book exists in the inner world. If that's the case, then I have nothing to say." "Heh." The Dawn Moon Tower Master smiled and said, "Talking to a smart person like the Jiming Marquis, I really don't dare to be careless." "Same to you." Ning Chen drank the tea in his cup and said calmly, "Tower Master, let's not beat around the bush. Just tell me your purpose." "Light scroll." The Dawn Moon Tower Master said slowly. Hearing this, Ning Chen's hand paused. After a moment, he returned to normal and said calmly, "The light scroll is destroyed. This is not an absolute secret. With the Tower Master's ability, it should be easy for you to know. I know that the bright Chaos Twin Scrolls were destroyed during the War of Sending Off the Gods." The Dawn Moon House Master nodded and said, "Jiming Marquis, have you ever wondered why the tomes of the arcane are still complete in this generation? There have been so many disasters over the years, and the tomes of the arcane can't be passed down forever?" Ning Chen was silent. After several breaths of time he said, "Heavenly tomes aren't books." As expected, the Jiming Marquis also noticed it. The Dawn Moon Tower's mistress nodded slightly and said, "The heavenly tomes aren't books, they're laws. Even if they're destroyed, they'll reappear after a few days. However, no one knows how long that will take." "Tower Master, why are you so obsessed with the light scroll?" Ning Chen asked calmly. The Dawn Moon Tower's mistress looked at the tea in her cup and smiled. "Everyone has their own secrets, don't they? Tower Master is right." Ning Chen shifted his gaze to the maidservant who was cutting the candles and asked, "Xiao Lian, is it? It's getting late. Go and rest." Hearing this, Yu Lian's delicate hand trembled, and she hurriedly bowed and said, "Yes." After saying that, Yu Lian didn't dare to stay any longer. She turned around and left. The Jiming Marquis is really someone who has tender feelings for the fairer sex. The Dawn Moon Tower's mistress chuckled. Ning Chen retracted his gaze. His expression didn't change much as he said, "Tower Master, you're joking. Let's continue." The Dawn Moon Tower's mistress glanced at the girl behind her and said, "Hong Wuan, you should also go and rest." "Yes." Hong Wuan respectfully bowed and silently left. After the two girls left, only the two of them were left in the room, quietly drinking tea. After a long time, the Dawn Moon Tower's mistress put down the teacup in her hand and said, "The Jiming Marquis was once the owner of the Light and Chaos Scrolls, and should have a special connection to them. I wonder if you can help me?" Ning Chen didn't say anything, and waited for her to continue. In a transaction there are gains and losses. For the Jiming Marquis help, I'll also pay the same price. The Dawn Moon Tower's mistress said seriously. "The time restriction?" Ning Chen looked up and asked calmly. "No." The Dawn Moon Tower's mistress shook her head and said, "The time restriction isn't in my hands, so I can't make the decision. As long as you can open the ancient battlefield, someone will naturally deliver the time restriction." "Then what's the price you're talking about?" Ning Chen's eyes narrowed. "The secret of the ancient battlefield." The Dawn Moon Tower's mistress replied. "Mistress should know that I'm not interested in these things." Ning Chen calmly said, "What if this secret is related to immortals?" The Dawn Moon Tower's mistress asked. Hearing this, a strange look flashed through Ning Chen's eyes, and a rare trace of seriousness appeared. After a moment of silence, Ning Chen looked at the person in front of him and said, "I can help you find the light scroll, but not the chaos scroll. It's something left behind by an old friend, and can't be given to anyone." Deal. The Dawn Moon Tower's mistress nodded without hesitation. Outside the study, the cold night gradually deepened, and the candlelight reflected the two figures. The door only opened when the cold moon moved to the west. After the Dawn Moon Tower's mistress left, only the white-robed Marquis was left in the study. He looked at the flickering candlelight with deep eyes, and no one knew what he was thinking. In the guest room, the Dawn Moon Tower's mistress walked over, and Hong Wuan immediately went forward. A trace of nervousness appeared on her beautiful face as she asked, "Mistress, did Sir Ning agree?" "Yes." The Dawn Moon Tower's mistress nodded. "Mistress and Sir Ning are already friends, so why are you still so stubborn?" Hong Wuan didn't understand. "Wrong." The Dawn Moon Tower's mistress shook her head and said, "The word friend is not that simple, especially when facing someone as rational and intelligent as the Marquis. Now, we are only in a cooperative relationship and are far from being friends. Perhaps you are more like friends with him." Hong Wuan doesn't understand. Hong Wuan was confused and said, "If you don't understand, then don't understand. You will understand in the future that growing up too fast is not a good thing." The Marquis is the clearest example. The Dawn Moon Tower's mistress said calmly. As a businessman, profit came first. The Marquis was trustworthy, and was no doubt a good partner. However, the Marquis's intelligence was not so pleasing. To be honest, she would rather face a true realm-old monster than a Marquis, who had cultivated for less than 100 years. In the study, the door creaked open and Ningchen walked out. He looked at the bright moon in the sky without saying a word. Becoming an immortal, he believed in fairy tales when he was young, but after practicing martial arts, he became less and less convinced. Even though he had seen the East and West immortal realms, he still couldn't overlap the immortals in his memory with the reality. Perhaps he was a frog in a well. "Hong Wuan, what do you think his tribulation is?" In the guest room, the Dawn Moon Tower's mistress stood in front of the window and looked in the direction of the study and asked, "The devil's body should be the devil's tribulation. As for the phoenix's body," the tower's mistress said that young Master Ning was using the art of bewitchment of the royal family to pass the love tribulation. "As for this body, I can't guess," Hong Wuan said softly. "Infinite tribulation," the Dawn Moon Tower's mistress said calmly. "It is also commonly known as the tribulation of all beings. In thousands of years, he is the first person to pass this tribulation. Perhaps he is also the first person to succeed." Hearing this, Hong Wuan was shocked and said, "Young Master Ning has not reached the perfection realm?" "I don't know." The Dawn Moon Tower's mistress shook her head and said, "His body is too special. According to the Foundation, it is not an exaggeration to say that he has reached the immortal void realm, or even the reality realm, not to mention the state of mind. For him, the state of mind has never been a problem. However, I feel that there is something wrong with his perfection realm." "Why?" Hong Wuan was puzzled. "Heavenly punishment," the Dawn Moon Tower's mistress said seriously. "If I did not guess wrongly, in order to send away the Netherworld King, he used the power of the bright and chaotic twin scrolls to bury millions of lives to suppress the power of the Netherworld King. Although he succeeded, he also sowed the root of the disaster. The karma of these millions of lives, and even the infinite tribulation of all beings, have been added to the Marquis Ji Ming. Unfair." Hong Wuan's eyes overflowed with tears as she said, "Fair," the Dawn Moon Tower's mistress said. "The tribulation of one person in exchange for the tribulation of all beings. One person bearing the karma of millions of lives. There is nothing fairer than this. This is the mercy of heaven." Hong Wuan's hands were clenched so tightly that cracking sounds could be heard. "Why? Is heaven's right and wrong so cruel?" "It's coming." The Dawn Moon Tower's mistress looked at the horizon, and her eyes turned serious. In the horizon, dark clouds covered the moon and thunder roared. The terrifying and abnormal pressure rapidly increased, and kept surpassing the limit. Supremacy tribulation? Hong Wuan was shocked. How could the supremacy tribulation be so terrifying? "Tower mistress, please protect the imperial city." Ningchen looked at the horizon and said calmly. Soon after, his figure flashed and swept toward the horizon. In the next moment, a shocking scene occurred. In the sky above the imperial city, billions of blood-colored thunderbolts descended from the sky, as if the wrath of heaven was sending down the most terrifying punishment. In an instant, the blood-colored thunderbolts submerged Sui. The power spread and turned the sky above the imperial city into a blood-colored sea of lightning. In the sea of lightning, bolts of lightning spread out and descended on the mortal world, falling toward the imperial city. The wrath of heaven is really something that cultivators do not want to face the most. The Dawn Moon Tower's mistress sighed softly. She took a step and swept under the thunderbolts. The heavenly soul's silk entered her hand, and the yellow springs sounded, shaking away the scattered blood-colored thunderbolts. In the imperial city, countless commoners were awakened by this shocking scene. Looking at the tribulation clouds in the sky, they trembled violently. Is it the Marquis? The commoners were even more shocked. Why was it heaven's punishment again? 30 years ago, the Marquis was burned by the heavenly fire. 30 years later, heaven still refused to let the Marquis go. Thunderbolts descended, and the four sources rose. Wind, water, thunder, and fire erupted. A sword with a hint of blood in it appeared. Blood traces spread and pierced into Su Yi's arm. In an instant, an ancient and primordial power erupted. The four scrolls merged and multiplied endlessly. At the beginning of creation, endless destruction and reincarnation were created. The scene of the absolute beginning opening the sky appeared again. With a shocking explosion, heaven and earth were in chaos. Sui stood in the sea of lightning with a grave expression. Her long black hair fluttered in the wind. Tens of thousands of thunderbolts roared, but they could not get close to her. The most terrifying heaven's might. Billions of thunderbolts descended once again. The power reached the peak. 1,000 miles, 10,000 miles, turned into a blood-colored sea of lightning. Heaven's wrath did not allow knowing destiny to advance. Heaven, you dare to be my enemy? Ningchen stepped out, and his killing intent erupted. His sword went against the world, and soared into the sky. Chapter 721. In the sky above the imperial city, heavenly punishment descended. Earth-shattering blood-red lightning turned the entire night sky into a sea of blood. Among the millions of lightning bolts, a beam of sword light soared into the sky. The four essences coiled around it with the power to destroy the heavens and shake the universe. The sword broke through the heavens and the void collapsed. A huge black hole appeared and swallowed everything. Boom! The sinners resisted, and the heavens became angrier. The tribulation clouds rolled and blood-red lightning formed. The four symbols roared, and the power to destroy the heavens and the earth swept out. The four symbols' deities appeared, and everything was under their orders. The heavens and the earth turned into chaos, and the scene of the beginning of the world was recreated. The four symbols appeared. Around by the four essences were extremely brilliant. The heavenly book created the heavenly way, and the supreme intent on the sword rose rapidly. The four symbols descended, and the sword light soared into the sky. The most extreme collision had a majestic power that could destroy the heavens and the earth. The clouds in the 9 heavens rolled, and the aftermath shook the 9 provinces. Below, the common people looked up at the sky, not knowing what to do. Even the heavens were unwilling to protect them. Who else could they ask for help? The deities who once wanted to destroy the world? In the backyard of the Marquis Manor, Hong Wan and Yu Lian looked at the sky, their eyes full of nervousness. At the center of the four symbols' deities, Bai Yi stood alone, facing wave after wave of attacks. Her expression was not the slightest bit flustered. The sword swung and slashed. The four symbols' deities had a tacit understanding of attack and defense, and did not show any flaws. The calamity of destruction was endless. It was only to punish the sinners, and would not stop until they were dead. The vermilion bird's divine fire burned the heavens and boiled the seas. The azure dragon's divine power could shake the heavens. The white tiger's sharp claws were unstoppable. The black tortoise's defense was unparalleled. The most powerful four symbols' deities worked together to kill the knowing destiny deities. The heavens were merciless and punished the sinners. The sins of millions of creatures could not be forgiven. The deities were solemn and decisive. Beams of divine light streaked across the night sky. The battle became more and more intense. Weapons collided and flames filled the sky. 1,000 earth revolutions. Bai stepped forward and flipped her palm. The earth rolled again, and the earth rumbled in the distance. The earth within 100 miles rose and flew into the sky. With a bang, it closed and sealed the four symbols' deities. With a bang, the earth closed and dust filled the sky. The four symbols' deities were buried within the earth. On the ground, the common people's faces were filled with joy. Before he could finish his thoughts, for streaks of brilliance rushed into the clouds from the combined earth. The deities had broken through the seal. White light flashed as the white tiger's sharp claws tore open the heavens and tore towards the sinners. Pung! Saber light flew out and blocked the sharp claws. The purple chi that lingered around it was the faith power of all living beings. The indestructible claws and unbreakable protection clashed head-on. Purple chi protected his body. After one move, the sword light broke through the sky and forcefully counterattacked. The black tortoise roared and blocked in front. It used its unbreakable protection to forcefully block the sword light. After a momentary stalemate, the vermilion bird divine flame burned through the sky. The extremely high temperature caused the void to distort. 3,000 li of sword snow. Flames descended, rolling up the heavens, catalyzing the martial arts of Taoism. Thousands of miles of snow drifted, instantly freezing everything. Roar! The azure dragon roared to the sky. As the dragon tail swept across, the surrounding space collapsed. The terrifying divine power destroyed everything in its path. The four symbols, which combined both offense and defense, displayed a terrifying strength. After countless years of evolution from the heavenly Tao, the four symbols' deities were endowed with the most terrifying battle prowess. They surpassed the limits of the mortal world, and even surpassed the limits of the realm. The heavenly punishment that did not leave any life was not willing to give sinners any more chances. The four symbols descended to kill knowing destiny. The dragon tail approached, and the destructive power attacked. The space in front of her turned black. However, Sui did not dodge. Her sword and saber left her hand, and she turned her palm to face the azure dragon's divine power. With a loud rumble, Sui flew out 1,000 feet. She grabbed the dragon tail with her right hand, and threw it towards a distant mountain peak. In the next moment, a shocking rumble sounded. A mountain peak caved in, and waves of dust surged tens of thousands of feet. The extremely intense battle shocked all the people in the imperial city. For the first time, they clearly saw the power of the martial Marquis. In 10 years he has grown so much. In the polar regions of the north, Nanling, Central Plains, and West Earth, the human supremes looked in the direction of Great Xia. Shock flashed through their eyes. The current knowing destiny Marquis was too terrifying. In the forbidden grounds of Chongling, the seals were undone. Nu Chong walked out and looked into the distance. A strange expression appeared on her beautiful face. He had returned. Female Supreme, I am going to find young master. A beautiful woman walked out from behind Nu Chong. She looked to the east and spoke. Go. Nu Chong was silent for a moment. Thank you for taking care of me these days. Ruashi will remember it, Lu Ruashi said softly. No need to be polite. Your young master has repaid this favor for you. Nu Chong said as she looked to the east. I am leaving. Female Supreme, please take care. Ruashi said softly. Then, she took a step forward and flew towards the east like Chong, rushing to the moon. Seeing the former leave, Nu Chang's eyes flashed. Knowing destiny Marquis, Nu Chong has repaid your favor. In the imperial city of Great Xia, heavenly punishment rumbled endlessly. The sounds of fierce battle were endless. Saber light and sword shadows crisscrossed as they fought the strongest of the four symbols gods. With mental power, Sui stood in the purple energy like a true immortal. There was no fluctuation on her cold face. Only the dancing saber and sword interweaved with killing light. The battle reached its climax. The four symbols gods were injured by the saber and sword. With the four scrolls' destructive power, even the gods could not completely destroy them. The power accumulated and quickly nibbled away the power of the heavenly Tao. Roar! The four symbols roared to the sky. representing the uncontrollable anger of the heavenly Tao towards the sinner. Thousands of thunderbolts fell to help the gods kill knowing destiny. Noisy, the saber light was waved in the opposite direction, breaking the sky and splitting the sea. The mighty purple energy blocked the thunderbolts and annihilated the heavenly Tao's anger. The four symbols followed, but the sword light also swept through the sky. The wind and fire surged and collided with the gods. The shocking battle against the heavenly Tao was beyond everyone's understanding. The sinner who blasphemed the heavenly Tao's face was proud and unyielding. In the peak battle, knowing destiny's sword let out a low hiss. The co-life sword's brilliance became more and more dazzling as the fighting spirit of the main body rose. In a radius of 1,000 miles, the sound of swaying chains could be heard. In an instant, the world seemed to be bound by invisible chains. The four symbols could not move. Four scrolls at the same time, no life in heaven and earth. The moment the four symbols were blocked, knowing destiny's saber and sword changed positions. The four scrolls opened instantly, and the endless power of the heavenly Tao spread rapidly. The moment the four symbols broke into the forbidden area, the power of the laws around them was quickly annihilated. Roar! At the moment of crisis, the white tiger's sharp claws tore through the air. With the power to destroy itself, the other three gods rushed out and escaped the death area. After a breath, the white tiger collapsed and disappeared completely. The three symbols roared. Even though they were just the incarnation of the laws, they still received the sole power of the four symbols in ancient times. The rosefinch spread its wings and burned the sinner in front of it with divine fire. The azure dragon also rushed to the former with unparalleled divine power. Its dragon tail swept through thousands of obstacles. Ningchen snorted and flashed over. In a flash, he was above the rosefinch deity. Skyfall. The sword light rotated, and a horrible sword light fell from the sky and slashed at the rosefinch deity. The black tortoise rushed to block it. However, the tacit understanding of the four symbols was broken. The black tortoise deity, who was not good at speed, was still half a step slower. The sword light penetrated the rosefinch deity's body with dazzling brilliance. The rosefinch deity screamed and disappeared immediately. The situation of the battle changed rapidly in the blink of an eye. The rosefinch deity and the white tiger had been killed. The rumbling thunder tribulation blocked the power of all living beings and could not fall. Is that all? God, how can you take me? Ningchen looked at the sky and said coldly. Then he disappeared again. The azure dragon was in front of him. The sword light blocked the enemy for a moment, and then the sword light penetrated his body. The scattered green light was the mark of the failure of the divine punishment. The four symbols had fallen one by one. Only the black tortoise was left. At this moment it was so weak. A talent of the generation. Below, the master of the Dawn Moon Tower said slowly with a flash of light in her eyes. It was over. God could not take him. Although the divine punishment was strong, the knowing destiny was stronger. As soon as she finished speaking, Sui moved in the sky. The sword light was dazzling, and the sky was full of snow. The moment the snow fell, the black tortoise collapsed and disappeared between heaven and earth. Sky shattering, the black tortoise disappeared, and the sword power changed direction. Tens of thousands of wild clouds rushed to the sky and swept toward the rolling thunder tribulation cloud. In an instant, the sword light broke through the sky. The thunder tribulation cloud could not bear the power of the ultimate marshal and disappeared. The sword light disappeared. In the wild clouds and waves, Sui stepped down and returned to the human world. In the imperial city, there was a short silence. Immediately the people were happy. The Marquis had won. The past grudges had passed with time. The only memory left was that the Marquis had fought bloody battles again and again to protect the Great Xia and the Divine Prefecture. The people were forgetful. However, no matter how temporary the legend was, they were the most devout believers. Congratulations! In the backyard of the Marquis mansion, the master of the Dawn Moon Tower looked at the young man in front of her and said. Ningchen nodded and said calmly, "Thank you for protecting the imperial city. It's nothing." The master of the Dawn Moon Tower smiled and said, "Such a wonderful battle is really rare. The Marquis of the Great Xia is indeed the strongest in the world. Master, you are too kind, Ningchen said softly. Suddenly, his eyes focused and looked to the west. That was Ruoxi? Master, please wait a moment. I will go pick up someone. As soon as she said that, Sui disappeared and swept toward the west. Thousands of miles away, Sui flashed by. Her speed was extremely fast. With the absolute foundation, she was infinitely close to extreme speed. In the east, the dark night passed. Under the first ray of sunlight, it was so warm that it dispelled the cold of the night. Ruoxi looked to the east, and a smile appeared on her beautiful face. She was almost there. At this moment, a gentle voice sounded. It was so familiar. Girl, long time no see. Sui walked out and looked at the maid in front of her. Ruoxi's body trembled. She looked at the person in front of her in a daze. Tears instantly overflowed from her eyes. What's wrong? Are you not happy to see Master? Then I will go back. Ningchen smiled. Master, you are making fun of this servant again. Ruoxi came back to her senses and smiled through her tears. She took 2 steps forward and hugged the former tightly. Where have you been all these years? Have you forgotten Ruoxi? Longing, excitement, and now all turned into tears. She had followed him for a lifetime. The person in front of her was her everything. Okay, don't cry. Didn't I come to pick you up? Let's go home. Ningchen reached out and patted the little beauty in his arms and whispered, and let's go home. Ruoxi raised her head and smiled. Suddenly, it was like 100 flowers blooming bright and charming. Chapter 722. The return of Marquis Jiming's manor had caused a stir in the imperial city. The civil and military officials didn't dare to be careless and sent their greeting cards one after another. In the front hall, Ning Chen's gaze swept over the greeting cards one by one. He immediately looked at the steward and said, "Tell the people who sent the cards that Jiming has stepped down from his position and will not return. Tell them not to waste their time here and do what they should do." Yes, the steward respectfully responded and turned to leave. Next door, Ruoxi poured tea and put a very small black pill in it. She immediately called Yu Lian and whispered, "Little Lian, bring the tea to the young master." Yu Lian looked at the black pill disappearing in the tea and felt uneasy. "Sister Ruoxi, what did you put in?" "Don't ask too much, go." Ruoxi smiled. But Yu Lian didn't dare to reach out and took 2 steps back. "I won't harm the young master." Helpless, Ruoxi could only carry the tea to the next door. In the front hall, Ning Chen saw the 2 girls coming one after the other. He smiled and said, "You've been busy for half a day, take a rest." "No need, this servant isn't tired. Please have some tea." Ruoxi offered the tea and smiled. Ning Chen took the tea and was about to drink when he heard an urgent voice. "Marquis, there's something in the tea. You can't drink it." Yu Lian couldn't help but say anxiously. "Oh." Ning Chen was slightly surprised. He looked at the tea in the cup and said, "There is indeed something in it." "Ruoxi, what did you put in?" "I can't say. But this servant won't harm the young master." Ruoxi whispered. "Then don't say." Ning Chen casually responded and didn't ask any more questions. He thought about things while drinking tea. Seeing this, Ruoxi's beautiful face flashed a bright smile. She stood quietly beside him, just like in the past. "Tomorrow, when we go to pay respects to the Empress, prepare some pastries. Don't be too sweet, the Empress doesn't like it." Ningchen put down the teacup and said, "Okay." Ruoxi nodded and whispered, "I haven't seen Xi in you for a long time. Let's go together." Ningchen continued. "Okay." Ruoxi responded again. At this time, the steward came and bowed. "Marquis, the people have been sent away and your words have been delivered." "All right, you can leave," Ningchen said calmly. "Yes." The butler accepted the order and retreated respectfully. After dealing with the matter, Ningchen stood up and looked at the maidservant beside him. "Let's go." Ruoxi nodded and stepped forward to catch up. After taking 2 steps, Ningchen stopped and looked at the little maidservant in the hall, who looked a little lonely and said, "Xiaolian, you should come as well." Hearing this, Yu Lian was first startled, then joy appeared on her face as she hurriedly followed. Ruoxi chuckled. After so many years, the young master really hasn't changed at all. He's still so good to the people around him. Seeing the smile on the little handmaiden's face, Ningchen smiled and walked out of the hall. Back then, the old steward had done his best for the Marquis' estate. Now that the old steward was gone and only left behind this granddaughter, he would take care of her as much as he could. Ruoshi looked at the slightly uneasy maid beside her, and showed a gentle expression. Xiao Lian, there's no need to be so nervous. Young master doesn't beat or scold people. Yu Lian answered uneasily. She glanced at the Marquis in front of her, and quickly lowered her head. Ruoshi reached out to take the little handmaiden's hand, and gently squeezed it to ease her nervous mood. In front, Ningchen looked at the changes in the imperial city. His eyes flashed with a little brilliance. The scenes of the past seemed to still be in front of him, but things were still the same, and people were no longer the same. Great Princess Royal Residence. The mansion was still the same as before. It didn't seem to have changed much. When Ningchen arrived, the guards in front of the mansion immediately went inside to report. In the courtyard of the mansion, Xia Xinyu, who was planting flowers and plants, heard the report and nodded gently. Invite them in. The guard trotted back. Not long after, 3 figures came in. The one in the lead was dressed in white, and had a calm and gentle face. Xinyu, I trust you have been well since we last met. Ningchen whispered. Xia Xinyu looked up and glanced at the former. Her face was still as delicate and charming as before, without the slightest trace of age. It was as if even time couldn't bear to take away this stunning face. Come in and help. Xia Xinyu said calmly. Ningchen nodded, and walked into the flower garden. He immediately squatted down and planted flowers and plants with her. How long will you be back this time? Xia Xinyu handed over a purple sunflower, and casually asked. Ningchen received it, and carefully planted the flower seedlings. He said, I will leave soon after I finish my business. Xia Xinyu nodded. There was no disappointment on her face. She asked, You still haven't succeeded? Ningchen shook his head and said, No, it's more difficult than I imagined. Now that I have found the immortal peach tree and the jade lake, I still can't solve the problem of the 9,000 years of blooming and bearing fruits. Since we have already reached this step, let's continue. Don't leave any regrets. Xia Xinyu took the water, and watered the purple sunflower that she had planted and said softly. Ningchen nodded lightly and asked, What about you? Are you really not going to marry? I'm not going to marry. Xia Xinyu nodded, and looked at the person in front of her. She said, I won't be able to keep my appearance for many years. If you can find a way to revive her, marry me. Ningchen was startled and fell silent. After a moment he nodded and said, Okay. A person's life was short. Xia Xinyu's cultivation wasn't high. He didn't know what method she used to keep her appearance, but it didn't change her lifespan by much. Not far away, Ruoshi looked at the 2 people in the flower garden. A trace of sadness flashed through her eyes. In her opinion, the young master and the 9th princess were the most suitable couple. Unfortunately, they missed each other at the best of times. The royal bloodline of the Xia dynasty was full of experts. However, the 9th princess, who was extraordinarily talented, deliberately rarely practiced martial arts. No one knew why. Perhaps longevity wasn't what the 9th princess wanted. What about the girl in Barren City? Have you seen her all these years? Xia Xinyu asked. No. Ningchen shook his head and said, I haven't seen her since the last battle. I also haven't heard any news about her. It's as if she has disappeared from this world. Hearing this, Xia Xinyu sighed softly and said, Her talent is the best in our generation, and she's also the first person to enter the Xiantian realm. You still have a long way to go. If fate wills it, you'll meet her sooner or later. Is it fate? Ningchen whispered softly. A trace of emotion flashed through his eyes. He didn't say anything more. If they didn't know each other when they met, then whether they met or not, perhaps it was no longer important. His path was full of thorns. He didn't want to hurt anyone who cherished him. If forgetting each other could allow her to live without restrictions, then he would no longer be stubborn. Looking at the light in the former's eyes, Xia Xinyu sighed again. Was he going to let go just like that? He used to be so persistent. Outside the flower garden, Yulian looked at the two. For some reason, she felt inexplicably sad. She once heard from her grandfather that the Marquis and the eldest princess were once betrothed. However, both of them refused. She didn't understand why such a beautiful pair didn't come together. The Marquis's relationship with the eldest princess was obviously very good. Why did he refuse Zhang Xuan's decree? Feeling the former's gaze, Xia Xinyu raised her head. When she saw Ruoxi, she nodded slightly. Who is the little girl beside Ruoxi? Xia Xinyu asked. Yu Lian, the old housekeeper's granddaughter. She has been in charge of the backyard when I was away. Ningchen calmly said. Very good child. Do you need me to help you arrange a husband's family? Xia Xinyu continued. Then I'll trouble you. Ningchen nodded. He didn't have many days to stay. It was best to let Xia Xinyu arrange these days. Marquis. Great princess, this servant doesn't want to marry yet. Hearing the conversation between the two, Yulian hurriedly bowed respectfully. Don't be nervous. You are a member of the Marquis's household. Even if we arrange a husband's family for you, it will still be with your consent. Xia Xinyu's expression was calm. Thank you, great princess. Yulian couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Ruoxi, are you still going to follow your Marquis? Xia Xinyu looked at the girl beside Yulian. A smile flashed across her beautiful face. Replying to great princess, Ruoxi no longer has a family. Wherever Lord goes, this servant will follow. Ruoxi nodded. Xia Xinyu smiled and looked at the man beside her. The most beautiful courtesan in the imperial city, but she doesn't want to marry. She only wants to be by your side as a maid. Your luck with women is really good. When did you learn to make fun of me? Ningchen said helplessly. When did I make fun of you? Isn't this the truth? You must know how to cherish the people around you. Don't wait until you miss them before you regret it. Xia Xinyu smiled. The tenderness on her face was clearly visible. You are actually quite similar to her ladyship. Ningchen said seriously. Seeing the serious expression of the former, Xia Xinyu was startled and immediately puzzled. Why do you say that? The same long-winded. Ningchen once again put down a purple sunflower and answered seriously. Xia Xinyu had heard this before. She raised her hand and hit the former. How can you talk to the princess like this? Be careful or I'll beat you. Heh. Ningchen smiled and said. Speaking of which, in order to run out of the palace, I was often scared by her ladyship. But now that I think about it, other than being punished by kneeling and being grounded, I really haven't been beaten. That's because Imperial Mother is biased towards you. When Imperial Brother and I were young, who didn't get beaten by Imperial Mother? You were the only one who got into so much trouble. Yet Imperial Mother only punished you by grounding you. Moreover, after you ran out of the palace with Miaoyu's wedding procession, the remaining few months of grounding punishment was taken by me in your place. Xia Xinyu said in a bad mood. That's also because I defeated those envoys for you. Otherwise, the one who's married now would be you. In the end, it's still you who got a big advantage. Ningchen argued. If I knew it would be like this, I would have married. It's better than not being able to marry now. Xia Xinyu rolled her eyes at the former and said while watering the purple sunflower. That's because your vision is too high. If you don't believe me, you can go out on the street and shout, I want to marry. I guarantee someone will agree. Ningchen's mouth was merciless. Outside the flower garden, Ruoxi listened to the two bickering. At the same time, a trace of nostalgia flashed through her eyes. These years the young master was too tired. Only in front of the princess and those friends could he temporarily put down the heavy burden in his heart. Chapter 723. In the princess's residence, Ningchen left with two maids and walked towards the Marquis's residence. Xia Xinyu looked at the silhouette in the distance, and her beautiful eyes flashed with a faint sigh. It had been 30 years, could she still wait for that day? Ruoxi looked back at the ninth princess and felt inexplicably sad. On the side, Yulian looked back, and then looked at the Marquis in front. Her young face flashed with confusion and puzzlement. She didn't understand why the Marquis refused the marriage arranged by Zhang Sun. Could it be that the Marquis really never liked the great elder princess? In front of him, the silhouette walking forward didn't look back even once. Step by step, she walked forward until she disappeared at the end of the street. Love was heavier than a mountain. He was no longer the young man of the past and couldn't bear it. In front of the guest room of the Marquis' residence, the master of the Dawn Moon Tower stood quietly in a silver-gray cloak. When she saw the young man walking over, she smiled and said, "Brother Ning, have you decided when to leave?" "Tomorrow after I bid farewell to the elders," Ning Chen said calmly. The master of the Dawn Moon Tower nodded and said, "That's good. I have a feeling that something might have happened on the ancient Starry Sky Road. Before that, we must solve the matter here as soon as possible." "Master, I want to hear the truth. Is there a fourth realm in the sky beyond heaven?" Ning Chen asked seriously. The master of the Dawn Moon Tower narrowed her eyes. A moment later she replied, "Maybe, maybe not. It's too early for you to ask this. If you don't enter the treading immortal realm, or even the true realm, even if there is a fourth realm in the world, you won't be able to come into contact with that level of existence." Ning Chen was silent and didn't say anything. He just nodded slightly. As the night deepened, in the divine continent, in an unknown place, specks of golden light shone. The laws of heaven and earth gathered day after day, writing the will of heaven. Next to the golden brilliance, traces of black aura lingered, blocking all auras and all the mysteries of heaven. In the Marquis' residence, Sui stood in the backyard and quietly looked into the distance. As the master of the heavenly book, she gradually felt a clearer and clearer sense of familiarity. Not far away, in front of the guest room, Hong Wuan walked out and looked at the figure standing under the night sky and said, "Master, you are the master of the light scroll. Can't you feel its aura?" The Dawn Moon Tower's mistress shook her head and said, "Back then, the light and chaos scrolls were destroyed together. Even if they were reborn now, it's very likely that the two scrolls would appear together. With the interference of the chaos scroll, I am unable to detect the whereabouts of the light scroll. Young Master Ning was once the owner of the Ming scroll. Will he give it away?" Hong Wuan asked worriedly. "Yes." The Dawn Moon Tower master nodded and looked into the distance. "That's not what he cares about. In fact, the Marquis doesn't like fighting at all. To others, the tomes of arcane are priceless treasures, but to him, it's just a scroll." "What's the price Pavilion Master paid?" Hong Wuan softly asked. "The secret of the ancient battlefield," the Waning Moon Pavilion's master calmly said. "Only by knowing what he needs can we make a good deal. To be able to meet him in the inner realm is a pleasant surprise." "Pavilion Master, is young Master Ning really unable to enter the treading immortal realm?" Hong Wuan asked with a slightly lonely expression. "The possibility is extremely small. Although he's very strong, shockingly strong, entering the treading immortal realm requires extraordinary talent. This is not man-made, but determined by the heavens. If it were someone else, they might have a chance. But for the Marquis of Jiming, it's almost impossible. The heavens won't let him take this step," the Waning Moon Tower's master said honestly. "Isn't the path of cultivation always going against the heavens? Even mortals believe that man can conquer the heavens. Why is Pavilion Master so pessimistic about young Master Ning?" Hong Wuan asked seriously. "Huh?" The Waning Moon Tower's master smiled faintly and said, "What is the heavens? Mortals are frogs in a well, so they don't know the immensity of the heavens. Cultivators fight against the 3 disasters and 5 tribulations, but they are only fighting for the recognition of the heavens. Going against the heavens has always been empty words. After all, human strength is limited. How can one fight against the heavens? The Marquis of Jiming's strength has long surpassed the supreme realm by many times, but he still can't take this step. This is the truth." Hearing this, Hong Wuan fell silent, and a touch of sadness flashed through her eyes. Young Master Ning has clearly worked very hard, harder than anyone else. But why can't he get the reward he deserves? The cold moon moved west, and the long night gradually passed. When the sky in the east was about to brighten in the backyard, a plain-clothed figure who had been standing quietly all night looked at the room not far away and said, "Ruashi, let's go." With a squeak the door opened. Ruashi carried a cake basket and followed the former out of the mansion. Imperial tomb. In front of a quiet tomb, two people walked one after the other. The man in the lead was dressed in plain clothes, untainted by the filth of the mortal world. 30 years had passed, and everything had changed. The ruthlessness of time would never change, because of anyone. Ningchen placed a plate of pastries in front of Zhang Xuan's tomb. The tiredness in his eyes could no longer be concealed. After returning, he really took off his mask in front of the elders. He was still the immature young man from 30 years ago, reckless and bold in front of the Empress of Wuxia. Your Highness, I'm back, but I'll be leaving soon. These pastries were made by Ruashi. This girl didn't know how to make anything before, but after coming to the Marquis estate, her skills are getting better and better. Didn't you always want me to marry Xinu? Yesterday, Xinu brought it up and I agreed. However, the ghost girl hasn't woken up yet, so my responsibility is not over yet. If your spirit is in heaven, please bless me to find a way to bring the dead back to life as soon as possible. Otherwise, your daughter really won't be able to get married. Also, Z is doing very well now. He's with Luo Fei of the Eternal Night Cult. This was all told to me by the Dawn Moon Tower. She's from the sky beyond sky, and met a strong cultivator when she went to look for the Jade Lake. He came to the Divine Land in search of the Bright Scroll. After I pay my respects to you, I'll leave to find the whereabouts of the Bright Chaos Twin Scrolls. The next time I come back, I'll try to bring Z back with me. You know he's different now. If he doesn't listen to me, can I kidnap him and bring him back? You used to scold me all the time. At that time, I always felt that you were long-winded. Now that I can't hear your scolding, I feel that something is missing. By the way, Senior is getting more and more powerful. I don't know where he went to prove his swordsmanship. I can't control him, nor can I beat him. When he comes back, I don't know when he'll return. There's one more thing. When I used to cultivate, Sister Qing Ning always said that my aptitude was poor. At that time, I wasn't convinced, but now I really feel it. Why is the heavens so unfair? There are so many geniuses in the world. Why can't I be one more? If you're in heaven, you must bless me to enter the immortal realm as soon as possible. Let's work together. The strength of two people is always greater than one, right? Also, in front of the mausoleum, the long-winded figure in plain clothes was completely different from her usual calm and taciturn self. She talked endlessly, as if she wanted to tell all the grievances and unwillingness of these years to her elders. Not far away, Ruashi quietly looked at the figure in front of her. A touch of sadness flashed through her eyes. She knew that the Empress was the most respected person in the young master's life. In the past, in the present, and in the future, it was only in front of the Empress that the young master was Ning Chun, not some famous Marquis of the Grand Xia. Chapter 724. The Divine Great Land, a vast divine land. For people were traveling together, led by two people. One was dressed in plain clothes, while the other was dressed in a luxurious robe. They were the top powerhouses in search of the heavenly book. Behind them, Hong Wuan and Ruashi followed. They were equally peerless women, making it difficult for people to look at them. Traveling thousands of miles without stopping, the masters of the heavenly book from different eras gathered together today. On Tianqing Peak, the two of them stared at each other. A mountain range that stretched for an unknown distance appeared before their eyes. It was lush and verdant. Let's go down, Ningchen said. And the Dawn Moon House master nodded and agreed. The two leaped and rushed towards the mountain range. Behind them, Hong Wuan and Ruashi looked at each other and also rushed down. At the foot of the mountain, ancient dragons moved about freely while numerous ancient trees shot into the sky and blotted out the sun. This unknown place that was rarely visited by humans was filled with exuberant vitality. We're here. Sensing the familiar aura nearby, Ningchen stopped in his tracks and asked. The Dawn Moon House mistress narrowed her eyes. The Chaos Scroll? It was really worthy of being the heavenly book's main transformation. They were so close, yet he still didn't notice. You two stay here, don't go forward. Ningchen looked back at the two girls and calmly said. Hong Wan and Ruoshi nodded and obediently stopped following. The tower master waved her hand and summoned the heavenly spirit Silk, which turned into a heavenly law and blocked the two girls. No one knew what danger would appear later, but one thing was certain: it wouldn't be easy for them to get the heavenly book. During the war, the Chaos volume absorbed too much resentment. Now that it was reborn, it was very likely that there would be variables. After 100 steps forward, the air pressure in the mountain range suddenly dropped. Streams of air continued to converge in front of them. A powerful suction force turned the surrounding area into a vacuum zone. Be careful. Ning Chen's eyes narrowed. Their worries were true. The Chaos volume not only reborn at the same time, but the resentment of all living beings it once absorbed was also reborn. It was even more terrifying. In the forest ahead, a muffled rumble of thunder sounded. Two clouds of mist lingered, one shining with golden light, and the other as dark as the abyss. They had completely different auras, but now they were both full of resentment and bone-chilling resentment. In order to resist Hell King, millions of people sacrificed themselves. The remaining resentment was terrifying. After more than 20 years, it had increased instead of decreasing. You're finally here. At that moment, specks of blue starlight floated up and a familiar figure appeared. She looked at the plain-clothed young man and said, "I've done my best. I'll leave the rest to you." After she finished speaking, the blue figure dissipated. The last remnant soul mark vanished from the world. That is, the Dawn Moon Pavilion's master's eyes narrowed as she spoke. "Fan Lingyue," Ningchen replied calmly. With just a remnant soul imprint, she was able to suppress such a huge amount of resentment for over 20 years. "This woman's soul force is truly terrifying," said the Dawn Moon Pavilion's master. "If it wasn't for the lack of time, the current divine continent would have already belonged to the Northern Meng Imperial Court," Ningchen said as he strode forward. The waning Moon House master looked at the young figure walking forward, and a strange look flashed through her eyes. She knew that the young man before her was not someone who spoke nonsense. A woman who could make him give such an evaluation must have such ability. Was the divine land weak? The truth was definitely not like this. Otherwise, when the underworld king descended, the inner realm would have already been destroyed. Perhaps he had really missed out on too much. After a while, the Dawn Moon Pavilion's master collected her thoughts and walked forward. She looked at the Chaos Light Scroll and asked, "Can we separate them?" "Yes, but..." Ningchen looked at the resentment between the Chaos Light Scroll and said with a serious expression, "The biggest problem now is that the Chaos Light Scroll is suppressing the resentment of all living beings. Once we take one scroll, the resentment of all living beings will immediately erupt. You take the Heavenly Scroll, and I'll suppress the resentment within," said the Dawn Moon Pavilion's master after a moment of thought. "Impossible." Ningchen shook his head and said, "You haven't experienced the battle back then, so you don't know much about the resentment. Resentment is different from other powers. This is the final resentment of living beings before they die. It's very terrifying. Although your cultivation is extraordinary, it's still very difficult to suppress this resentment without relying on the power of the two scrolls." "Oh." The Dawn Moon Pavilion's master frowned slightly and said, "It's that difficult? It's even more difficult. It can be said that if it weren't for the resentment of millions of living beings back then, we wouldn't have had any chance of winning the battle with the Netherworld King." Ningchen nodded and explained, "Among the 10 heavenly scrolls, only the Chaos Light Scroll isn't a cultivation technique. One governs the heavens, and the other governs the variables. Back then, Fan Lingyue and I used the destructive power produced by the fusion of the two scrolls to kill millions of living beings in the Divine Prefecture, barely suppressing the Netherworld King's cultivation technique. However, we didn't expect that after the two scrolls were destroyed, the resentment didn't dissipate. Instead, it gathered together with the two scrolls. Is there a way?" The Dawn Moon Pavilion's master asked seriously. She really didn't know much about the resentment. She had never experienced it personally, so it was difficult for her to understand it. "There is a way." Ningchen nodded and said calmly, "But the price is high. The reward for the pavilion's master isn't enough. The Dawn Moon Pavilion's master looked at the person in front of her and pondered for a moment. Then she said, "Brother Ning, as long as you can solve this resentment, I can promise to help you once in the future, no matter when, where, or who the target is." "Deal," Ning Chun responded. He waved his left hand, and a long and narrow blade surrounded by purple gas appeared. A vast and boundless psyche power spread out rapidly. "You only have one chance. Just take the heavenly book." "Understood." As soon as she finished speaking, the Dawn Moon Pavilion's master's figure moved instantly. She condensed extreme essence in her palm and reached toward the light scroll. The moment her finger touched the golden light, the balance was broken. A surge of surging and heavy resentment burst out. It was eerie to the bone, and it made people feel a chill in their hearts. The completely different power went straight to the divine sense, and genuine chi couldn't stop it. The Dawn Moon Pavilion's master's expression darkened. Her soul power was strong, and she resisted the terrifying resentment that kept attacking her. After a moment of stalemate, Ning Chun moved. He waved his psyche power, and a majestic purple gas fell, resisting the psyche power of all living creatures. With a bang, the power of faith and the resentment of all living creatures collided rapidly. A shocking aftershock spread out. The two scrolls trembled and separated. Seeing this, the Dawn Moon Pavilion's master took the opportunity to put away the light scroll. She took a step and quickly retreated. At this moment, the resentment of millions of living creatures burst out completely. Terrifying angry waves roared and surged, spreading out rapidly. 100 feet away, the heavenly soul silk vibrated, and the 7 laws of yellow spring rang, protecting the two girls. At the center of the resentment, Ning Chun and the Dawn Moon Pavilion's master stood side by side. Looking at the screaming Yin spirits around them, their expressions became solemn. "Pavilion master, take Ruo Shi and Hong Wan away first," Ning Chun said. "Be careful." The Dawn Moon Pavilion's master didn't hesitate. She took the two girls and rushed out of the mountain range. Millions of Yin spirits roared, and resentment spread out, trying to seal the mountain range. However, the sky was filled with purple gas, and a path was opened in the endless resentment. Knowing mandate Marquis, among the millions of Yin spirits, a malicious spirit surrounded by Yin Chi spoke. When he was alive, his resentment was so great that his soul didn't disperse after death. Looking at the plain-clothed figure, standing in the middle of the resentment, endless hatred flashed across his ferocious face. "You demon!" Another malicious spirit showed a terrifying face. His hatred was monstrous, and he wanted to eat his flesh. "What right do you have to sacrifice us? Demon, you don't deserve to be human. We curse you. You won't have a good death." Hateful figures and vicious curses came one after another. The resentment of the innocent people who died in the battle was so strong that it was shocking. There were old people, women, children, and so on. There were so many resentful spirits that it was impossible to count them all. Chapter 725. In an unknown place, millions of Yin spirits were freed from their shackles. Their ferocious faces were filled with hatred. In the midst of the spreading resentment, a figure in plain clothes stood quietly. Her calm face didn't change much. Unyielding and proud, her knees finally touched the ground. Knowing destiny's hands were stained with blood, there were enemies and innocent people. Millions of lives in the divine land were buried in the war of death. There was no reason to shirk, no matter what the purpose was. No one was qualified to take the lives of others. Not even knowing destiny. Sorry. The late apology, the knowing destiny kowtowed. Her clothes were stained with dust. Her black hair was stained with dust. The apology came 20 years too late. Among the millions of resentful spirits, the resentment around the few who had been kind when they were alive dissipated, and chose to forgive him. However, even more resentful spirits were still filled with hatred and resentment. "Marquis, blood debts can only be repaid with blood. You deserve to die." The sinister-looking old man, woman, and child were surrounded by Yin energy. They were supported by resentment. After hating for 20 years, how could they be forgiven so easily? The road to knowing destiny is not over yet. Before that, no one can take my life. Nian Qing's blade pierced the ground. Purple chi surged. Ning Chen stood up and looked at the sky full of Yin spirits. He calmly said, "If one day the ghost girl wakes up, knowing destiny will give you an explanation." "What explanation?" The wraiths looked at the purple aura in the saber with fear and said coldly, "At that time, knowing destiny will be at your disposal. I will not resist." Ning Chen said. Millions of Yin spirits heard this and pondered. In the center of the endless resentment, Nian Qing exuded a majestic purple chi. The powerful pressure made the Yin spirits not dare to approach half a step. "Marquis, remember what you said today. We will wait for you for a few more days." After weighing for a long time, the Yin spirits made a decision. They turned into a tide of resentment and disappeared into the Book of Chaos again. "Thank you," Ning Chen calmly responded. He waved his hand and took the Book of Chaos. He turned and left. Outside the mountain range, the master of Dawn Moon Tower looked at the figure in plain clothes in front of her. Her eyes flashed with a strange light. He thought there would be a fierce battle, but it seemed that was not the case. However, knowing destiny was protected by the power of faith of all living beings. Even if Yin spirits wanted to hurt him, it would not be easy. "Master, are you okay?" Ruashi came forward and asked worriedly. "I'm fine. Let's go. It's time to leave." Ning Chen smiled. Ruashi responded softly and stepped forward to catch up. 10 days later in the starry sky, the Dawn Moon House master looked at the beacon and said, "Jiming Marquis, let's part here. If fate wills it, we'll meet again in the future." "Take care," Ning Chen said calmly. "Take care." The Waning Moon House's master responded, and left with Hong Wan shortly after. Ning Chen glanced at the maid beside him and said, "Ruashi, let's go as well." Ruashi nodded and looked at the beautiful starry sky. "Young lord, can you tell me why those resentful spirits haven't made a move yet? Did you promise them something?" She knew that although young master's hands were stained with blood, he was definitely not someone who would willfully kill innocent people, nor was he someone who would shirk responsibility. It was difficult for young master to treat the resentful spirits of those innocent people as ruthlessly as he treated his enemies. "I agreed to a few things, but they're not important. Right now, the most important thing is to obtain the time seal. Other than that, everything else can be set aside for now," said Ning Chen calmly. Hearing this, Ruashi sighed in her heart and didn't ask any more questions. 9 Cloud Sky City, in front of the 33rd Sky Pillar, Hong Yi looked ahead, alone, looking at the sky pillar that pierced through the starry sky. Suddenly, she turned back, her eyes flashing. "He's finally here." In the distance, 2 figures walked over. The one in front wore plain clothes and had a delicate face. Only a pair of eyes were engraved with the wind and frost of time. "You're back." The phoenix body looked at the 2 people walking over and said, "Where's Iner?" Ning Chen asked. "To fulfill the promise from back then, and repay the favor she owed." The phoenix body said softly. Ning Chen nodded and looked at the phoenix body in front of him. "You've worked hard along the way. Leave the rest to me. Find the God's scroll as soon as possible. Otherwise our path will really come to an end." The phoenix body disappeared and turned into specks of starlight that merged into her body. Her soul returned and fell into a deep sleep. Memories came flooding in. There was pain and tiredness. Knowing Destiny's 3 bodies had experienced hundreds of tribulations. Even if her heart was as hard as stone, there would still be times when she felt tired. Ji Yuqing. Among the many names on the 33rd Sky Pillar, there was one name that stood out. Ning Chen glanced at it, then walked toward the city. On the 2nd floor of an inn in 9 Cloud Sky City, a violet-robed man looked at the young man walking toward him. His eyes flashed with coldness. Was this the person Yin Jiushi was talking about? Other than the executors of the ancient road and the doyens from the Starfield domain, the only other person who could fight Yin Jiushi to a standstill was this person. Ning Chen sensed an unfriendly gaze from the distance, but when he looked over, he didn't see anyone. Was it an illusion? "Young master, what's wrong?" Ruashi asked. "I don't know why, But ever since we entered the city, I've been feeling like someone has been watching us, Ningchen said. Ruoxi looked around, but aside from the passers-by, she didn't see anyone suspicious. At the same time, in a majestic palace in an unknown dimension, the doyens from the Starfield domain walked out. The Dawn Moon Tower's master also appeared for the first time in over a year. Tower Master, something happened on the ancient road. Do you know about it? Asked one of the leaders from the Z-Way star system. I know a bit. The Dawn Moon Tower's master nodded. Shenji, among us, you and the Dawn Moon Tower's master are the most proficient in the art of derivation. Should we work together to see where these people came from? Asked the leader from the Luojia Starfield. We can give it a try. Shenji nodded. Looking at the illusory figure on the other side, he said, Tower Master, let's begin. The Dawn Moon Tower's master nodded and waved her hand to form a hand seal. Not far away, Shenji also cooperated with her. Specks of starlight appeared on a compass. The mysteries of heaven evolved and time reversed. Four silhouettes flew out from the Starfield's fog. Their powerful auras were shocking. Oh! Seeing the face of one of them, the Dawn Moon Tower's master's eyes flashed. It was actually him. Is there something wrong? Asked the All Heaven Starfield's leader. These people came from the Red Phoenix Starfield's fog. I've already seen one of them. His strength is astonishing. Even if we were to fight him head-on, we might not necessarily be able to kill him, said the Dawn Moon Tower's master. Since you say that, you must have fought with him, said the leader from the Z-Way star system. Yes. The Dawn Moon Tower's master nodded and said, That person has already died by my hands. However, it was not by my own strength. Instead, he was assisted by an unknown expert. The Dawn Moon Tower's master did not say anything about the Knowing Destiny Marquis 3 transformations. People's hearts were unpredictable. Before their own interests were threatened, the Starfield Exalteds could still give in. However, once they knew that the Knowing Destiny Marquis had the strength to threaten them, their patience would instantly disappear. Earlier, in order to stop the gods, the Exalteds had no choice but to send out the Immortal Trapping Sword. Now that the Knowing Destiny Marquis had 2 immortal swords in hand, and his original body had returned, no one knew how powerful he had become. In that case, there are only 3 people left, said the leader from the Luojia Starfield. 3 peak corporeal, or even true realm experts. If they were determined to hide their identities, it would not be easy to find them, said Shenji calmly. After they appeared, many of the 9 kings died in battle. What I'm most worried about is that these people will be among the 9 kings, said the leader from the Z-Way star system. It's not appropriate for us to interfere with the matter of the ancient road of the stars. Have the enforcers keep a close eye on them, especially the 9 kings, said Shenji. The Starfield Exalteds nodded. Observing the situation was indeed the only way. The ancient battlefield was about to open. There could not be any accidents at this time. What about the 9th son of the Mahis clan? Where is he now? Asked the leader from the Sky Mist star system. 9 Cloud Sky City, said Shenji. How did he end up there? Asked the leader from the Sky Mist star system with a slight frown. The 9th son of the Mahis clan had left from the Hongluan star system. Logically speaking, he should not have passed through 9 Cloud Sky City. He seems to be looking for someone, said Shenji calmly. Did anyone pass by on that road? Asked the leader from the Z-Way star system. 2 new kings in Jiyuqing, said Shenji calmly. The daughter of the Ji family of the Spirit Void star system? Asked the leader from the Sky Mist star system. The Ji family is said to be the descendants of gods. They have the blood of gods in their veins. Could it be that the 9th son of the Mahis clan wants to steal the power of Jiyuqing's blood? Asked the leader from the Spirit Void star system. It's not impossible. The leader from the Z-Way star system also had a serious expression. He said, That child's talent is insufficient. He has reached the end of his path of cultivation. If he is able to use the blood of gods to temper his foundation, he might be able to enter the immortal treading realm. This is troublesome. The hearts of the various star system exalted sunk. The Ji family of the Spirit Void star system was a true colossus. If the 9th son of the Mahis clan truly attacked Jiyuqing, the Ji family would definitely be enraged. At that time, the ancient starry sky road would be in complete chaos. Everyone, you're overthinking things. The Dawn Moon Pavilion's master looked to the crowd and said, that child is not someone who cannot distinguish right from wrong. There is no enmity between him and Ji Yuqing. He would also not casually attack others. It's difficult to know a person's heart from their face. Before absolute benefits, who can distinguish right from wrong? We cannot take this risk, said the All-Heaven Starfield's leader with a deep voice. At the very least, he has done what he promised. That child promised that he would not rashly attack others. So far, he has never taken the initiative to attack others. Otherwise, why do you think Ning Chen is not one of the 9 kings? Said the Dawn Moon Pavilion's master calmly. I also do not approve of interfering with that child's actions. Going too far is just as bad as not going far enough. Although that child's cultivation has reached the end, his battle strength is still world-shocking. Everyone should know that there is no benefit in angering him, said Shinji. Since there are differences, then according to the rules, the minority's opinion must be followed by the majority's opinion, said the leader from the Z-Way star system. I propose to further restrict the actions of the 9th son of the Mahis clan, said the All-Heaven Starfield's leader for the first time. I agree. I agree. Voices of agreement covered up the voices of opposition. The various exalted had reached an agreement to restrict the Knowing Destiny realm once again. Chapter 726. Within 9-Cloud Heavenly City, 2 enforcers of the ancient road of the starry Heavenly City appeared, each of them in the late corporeal realm. The enforcers of 9-Cloud Heavenly City sensed them and came out to greet them. Huaigu Wenqi, why are you here? Asked the enforcers. We're here for Mo Gate's 9th son. Enforcer Wenqi, who had a higher cultivation base, replied. Oh, Mo Gate's 9th son is here? The enforcer frowned. He hadn't sensed anything at all. The star sovereigns and domain lords are worried that he'll harm the Ji family's daughter, so they sent us to warn her, said Huaigu. Ji Yuqing. 9-Cloud's eyes flashed. The Ji family's waters run deep. Mo Gate's 9th son shouldn't overestimate himself. He can't be measured by ordinary standards. In order to step into the immortal treading realm, he risked universal condemnation to steal the Ji family's god bloodline. It's not impossible, said Wenqi. After all, this is just a guess. Using this to repeatedly warn an expert with such shocking strength, it's undoubtedly a provocation. Don't you think it's a bit excessive? Enforcer 9-Cloud was worried. Ever since Mo Gate's 9th son disappeared for 3 years, he's changed his direction. He's been chasing after Ji Yuqing's name on the heavenly pillar. His goal is obvious. There's no need to argue about this. The sovereigns have already given the order, so we'll just carry it out, said Wenqi. 9-Cloud sighed and didn't say anything else. He felt that this matter was too unfair to Mo Gate's 9th son. In front of the 34th heavenly pillar, a violet-robed woman stood there. Her features were picturesque, and her temperament was otherworldly. She was so perfect that she didn't seem to belong to the mortal world. Suddenly, the space in front of her shook, and a powerful aura appeared. Although it was just a clone, it gave off an unbearable pressure. Ji Yuqing, said the newcomer. Sovereign. Ji Yuqing bowed respectfully when she saw the person who had arrived. Mo Gate's 9th son might harm you. Starting today, you're forbidden from leaving your name on the heavenly pillar, said the illusory figure. Oh! A strange look flashed across Ji Yuqing's eyes. She said softly, I have no enmity with him. Why would you say that? The god's blood in your body is what he needs. He has been looking for you for a long time. I think he will catch up to you soon, the phantom said. Thank you for your reminder, Venerable One. However, as a daughter of the Ji family, I will not lower my head to anyone, Ji Yuqing said calmly. This kid is different from ordinary people. Ji Yuqing, I'm not asking you to avoid him, because I'm looking down on you. It's just that this kid's strength is far beyond the younger generation. Even the law enforcers are no match for him. The virtual shadow continued to persuade her. Ji Yuqing frowned. How is that possible? Those words aren't false. Mo Gate's ninth son currently has 2 immortal swords, and his strength is unfathomable. Although you are one of the 9 kings, your chances of victory against him are still slim. Avoid him if you can, said the illusory figure. Yu Qing will remember honored one's words. Ji Yuqing bowed respectfully again. Her expression returned to normal, and she didn't say anything else. The illusory figure frowned. He knew that it was useless to force him. He reminded him once again before his figure scattered and disappeared. If you run into the 9th son of Blackgate Society in the future, head to the nearest city, Heaven City. The executors of the ancient road will be there to help you. His final voice echoed throughout heaven and earth, lingering for a long time. Ji Yuqing turned her head, a light flashing through her eyes. Mo Gate's 9th son. She hoped honored one's guess was wrong. After traveling 100 miles, Ji Yuqing suddenly stopped. She looked up into the sky, her gaze sinking. Who is it? God Bloodline. I've been looking for you for a long time. At that moment, clouds began to gather in the sky, and a red-robed figure slowly descended. His powerful aura shook people's hearts. Just who are you? Ji Yuqing's expression turned cold. Ning Chun. As soon as she said that, the red-robed figure flashed, and a sharp sword light pierced through the sky. Ji Yuqing pushed aside the sword light and clenched her fist. Multicolored light overflowed, and a long purple silk appeared. In an instant, the sky was filled with intertwining curtains, forming an inescapable net that sealed the intruder. Mo Gate's 9th son. There is no enmity between us. Why are you forcing me? Said Ji Yuqing coldly. Your god bloodline is the reason. Within the curtains, the red-robed figure's speed was 30% faster. She was like the wind. Your martial spirit is filthy. How disgusting. Ji Yuqing's expression turned cold. She dodged the sword light and condensed yuan in her left hand. Purple light surged out, and a peerless martial art appeared for the first time. Divine Dance of the Heavens. Purple light dazzled the world, and a powerful aura spread out. In the sky above, huge stars swayed, and starlight descended. This is... The red-robed figure narrowed her eyes and took a step forward, dodging the starlight. Heavenly Book, what a pleasant surprise. After a few steps, the red-robed figure turned back. Black chi overflowed from the tip of her sword, and a cold evil chi appeared. The sword light shook the stars, and a violent wind howled. In the wind and waves, the sound of battle rose again. The girl of the Ji family displayed her shocking ability for the first time. God Bloodline is indeed different. After exchanging a few moves, the red-robed figure withdrew her sword and condensed yuan. Evil chi whistled, covering the starlight in the sky. Ji Yuqing raised her head, and her eyes sank. What a dense evil chi. The 9th son of Mo Gate actually practiced such a filthy martial art. Traversing 100 eras, God as the master. With the evil chi in her way, Ji Yuqing took a step forward, and her divine yuan circulated. Her true chi flowed through her 8 meridians, and a boundless divine aura broke through the evil chi and rushed into the sky. What an unimaginable bloodline power. As expected of a god's descendant. Unfortunately, this power will soon belong to me. The red-robed figure flipped her palm, and her evil chi condensed into a pitch-black spear. Suddenly, the evil chi shook the sky, and the stars sank. The two extremes collided, shaking heaven and earth. Terrifying shockwaves violently shook the area. Divine power and evil vitality clashed with each other. After a moment of stalemate, there was an earth-shattering tremor as the evil weapon broke through the heavenly net. A purple-clothed figure flew out, stumbling and vomiting blood. Drip. Blood dripped down, dyeing the long silk red. Ji Yuqing's right arm was also bleeding. The scene of a god dying and an evil growing was too glaring. The difference in martial arts cultivation made the already unfair battle tilt. Ji Yuqing looked at the former and said, "So you're not a supremacy." It was rumored that Mo Gate's 9th son was only at the peak of the Xiantian realm. It was only because he had the protection of the enforcers that no one dared to provoke him. But now it seemed that Mo Gate's 9th son had deceived everyone. It's too late to realize this now. It's over. As soon as she finished speaking, Hong Yi's figure flashed past. The evil weapon gathered evil chi that filled the sky and shot out. Night fell in 9 Cloud Sky City. The white-robed figure stopped and looked ahead. Everyone, since you've come, why don't you show yourselves? The space in front of them shook, and 3 figures walked out. They were all at the late corporeal realm, and their auras were abnormally powerful. There are actually 3 enforcers in a single sky city. It seems they've come to target me. Ningchen calmly looked at the 3 of them. Gate's 9th son, this is our first time meeting. Greetings, said the leading enforcer. I wouldn't dare. Ningchen's expression was indifferent. The 3 of you are all seniors. If you want to greet me, it should be me greeting you. On the path of cultivation, those who have reached the top are first. You're so young, but your strength has already surpassed us. We really can't accept you calling us seniors. The enforcer calmly looked at the youth in front of him. Sir. Ruashi took half a step forward, worry flashing across her face. Don't worry. Ningchen looked back and comforted her softly. Then he looked at the 3 and said, Everyone please speak your intentions. Gate's 9th son is indeed a straightforward person. We won't beat around the bush. Star Venerables, we hope you can change your path. As for which path you choose, it's up to you to choose. Enforcer Wenqi walked forward and said directly. Ningchen frowned slightly when he heard this, and he said, The ancient path of the starry sky is boundlessly vast. Could it be that the path I choose obstructs the plans of the exalted ones? That's not it. Enforcer Wenqi shook his head. Star Venerables, we don't mean to force you. We just hope you can return to your original path. After all, every star field has their own path. There's no need to walk on the ancient path of another star field. Sorry, I don't have any plans to go back for the time being. It's just a path. Aren't you all too nervous to make such a big fuss? Ningchen said indifferently. Gate's 9th son, we won't talk nonsense. If you don't want to change your path, please give us a convincing reason. Enforcer Huaigu said in a deep voice. Do I need to report to others which path I choose? Don't you think you're meddling too much? Ningchen's face gradually turned cold. It's not that we're meddling too much, but your behavior has crossed our bottom line. Enforcer Wenqi said coldly. Oh. Ningchen narrowed his eyes and said, I don't think I've done anything outrageous. How did I cross your bottom line? Let's not beat around the bush. You changed your path after returning to the ancient path. You don't need us to say who you're looking for, right? Enforcer Huaigu said with a gloomy face. Ha! Ningchen smiled faintly and said, Ji Yiqing made you so nervous. It seems that even the Star Venerables don't dare to underestimate the foundation of the Ji family. You are the initiators of this trip to the ancient battlefield. Naturally, you don't want anything to happen to the ancient path. Please cooperate with us and don't make things difficult for us. Enforcer Juyin said sincerely. Ningchen looked at the 3 people. After a while he said indifferently, I'm indeed looking for Ji Yiqing's whereabouts. However, I don't mean any harm. That's all I have to say. If you still can't rest assured, then forgive me for being unable to help. After saying that, Ningchen didn't stay any longer. He walked forward with Ruashi beside him. Enforcer Huaigu frowned when he heard that. His figure flashed and instantly blocked in front of them. Enforcer Wenqi's face also darkened. He turned and walked forward to block the 2 people. I have no choice. With a sigh, Enforcer Juyin also turned and walked forward to block the 2 people's path. It seems that I've given in too much before. Ningchen's eyes turned cold. His white clothes fluttered in the wind, and his bloody murderous aura surged. Chapter 727. In Nine Cloud Sky City, the law enforcers were blocking Knowing Destiny's way. The atmosphere suddenly became heavy and tense. Although Sui didn't move, the 3 law enforcers in front of her had serious expressions. They knew very well that the young man in front of them was different from any other expert of the younger generation. There was no other young man in the world who could make the Star Venerables and Area Lords treat him differently. Ruashi, step back, said Ningchen. Okay. Ruashi nodded and immediately retreated a dozen steps. I thought it would be fine if I endured for a while, but I didn't expect that a moment of patience would be exchanged for a step of pressure. From today onwards, knowing destiny will no longer endure. As he spoke, blood chi filled the air and a green sword fell. The moment it touched his hand, blood runes pierced his arm. Heart and soul resonance. The three law enforcers' expressions changed slightly. They didn't dare to wait any longer, and stepped forward to attack. Her sword had shaken 3 palms. She was as immovable as a mountain, but she hadn't moved a single step. Something's wrong. An unshakable power. The 3 of them were shocked. How could this be? Although Mo Gates' 9th son's sword cultivation was world-shaking, his foundation and cultivation base were extremely limited. There was no way he could receive their palm energy head-on. Are you distracted? You're really confident. Ningchen said coldly. He condensed yuan in his left palm and slammed it into the law enforcer's chest. Ugh! With a muffled groan, the law enforcer was sent flying. He barely managed to stabilize himself after a dozen feet. Wen Qi and Jiu Yun, the 2 law enforcers, quickly calmed down and attacked the young man in front of them together. Back off! Ning Chen's expression was cold. He waved his sword and a snowstorm surged out. The sword was the only one with a peerless foundation, and shook the law enforcers of the ancient road. The sword and palm collided, shaking the entire city. The young experts were shocked, and looked in the direction of the battle. The aura of the corporeal realm, it was the law enforcers, who dared to cause trouble in Heaven City, and provoke more than one law enforcer. At this moment, countless formation runes in Heaven City automatically awakened, protecting the shaking city from the aftermath of the battle. Rumbling sounds rang out unceasingly. The battle that was already white-hot from the start caused the entire 9-cloud Heaven City to shake intensely. In the battle, the 3 enforcers pushed their martial arts to their limits. Their late corporeal realm cultivations stirred up clouds in the sky. Although they were not at their peak, they were not far from it. In front of the 3, Sui held a sword in her hand. It was as sharp as a divine sword unsheathed from its scabbard. Every sword could split open the heavens. After exchanging several moves, the 3 enforcers suppressed the impact of the sword chi in their bodies. They gathered their vital essence and joined forces to attack the former. Azure Dragon Shock. Ning Chen swung his sword, borrowing the power of his opponent. The Azure Dragon sword chi whizzed out, taking on the combined attacks of the 3. The 2 moves collided, and the Azure Dragon roared to the sky. Shocking shockwaves surged out, and the 3 figures retreated, the power of their palms reduced to nothing. Dragon Phoenix Sky Burial. Not willing to fight for a long time, the sword in Ning Chen's hand glowed with bloody light. Dragons and phoenixes coiled around each other, their cries echoing through the starry skies. This extreme might caused the heavens and earth to tremble. A powerful pressure spread out, and sword and tent rumbled, causing the surrounding land to disintegrate. Sensing danger, the 3 enforcers' eyes changed. They forcefully circulated their vital essence, and gathered it together. Their strongest move, the peak, had appeared. Just as the battle was about to come to an end, the clouds in the sky began to rapidly churn. 2 powerful figures walked out. One had sword-like eyebrows, bright eyes, and wore a silver-gray cloak. The other had a calm expression, and wore a light blue robe. Huaigu Wen Qi Jiyun, stop, said Shinji coldly. The 3 enforcers were startled to see them. They immediately restrained their auras and bowed, respectfully saying, "Greetings, venerables." Across from them, Ningchen also waved his hand to disperse his sword chi. Looking at the 2 of them, a cold light flashed in his eyes. "9th son of Mo Gate, it's our fault for not being strict enough. Please forgive us for our lack of manners." Shenji looked over at the youth in front of him. "Just because you're not strict enough, you're pushing away all responsibility? Do you think I'm that stupid?" Ningchen looked at the former and said coldly. Shenji's expression hardened, and he waved his hand. Violet energy filled the air, and a violet divine sword appeared. As soon as it was unsheathed, sword chi flashed, and blood sprayed through the air as 3 severed arms flew through the air. Ugh! The 3 enforcers groaned and involuntarily knelt down, cold sweat pouring down their backs. "9th son of Mo Gate," said Shinji calmly. "Consider these 3 severed arms our apology. We'll take these 3 back and discipline them. How about we let today's matter pass?" Seeing the sweat on the 3 enforcers' faces, Ningchen didn't say anything. Instead, his eyes grew even colder. These executors of the ancient road were truly pitiful. Wisdom Marquis, let's drop this matter. You need the time seal, so there's no need to shed all pretense for the time being. Next to Shinji, the Dawn Moon Pavilion Master, who hadn't spoken this entire time, transmitted her voice. Ningchen narrowed his eyes. A moment later, he looked at the woman behind him and said, Ruashi, let's go. Ruashi followed. As she passed by, she looked at the Dawn Moon Pavilion Master in confusion. She really couldn't figure out who this person was. After the two of them left, Shinji turned to the three enforcers. Do you blame me? We wouldn't dare. The three of them bowed their heads. Shinji nodded and didn't say anything else. Looking at the people beside him, he said, Let's go. The Dawn Moon Pavilion Master nodded and turned, disappearing into the void behind her. The three of you should go into seclusion to recover. Someone from your heavenly city will come to stand guard. The three enforcers lowered their heads even more, not daring to reveal the emotions in their eyes. Those three aren't your subordinates. Shinji, what you're doing will not only make those old freaks unhappy, but those three will also hold a grudge against you. Why bother? When Shinji does things, why should he care about what others think? As he spoke, the swirling space in the sky returned to normal, and not a trace of sound could be heard. At the same time, 100 miles away from the 34th heavenly pillar, a red-clothed cultivator was intercepting the Ji family's daughter. The battle had come to an end, and the heavily injured Ji Yuqing was about to die. At this moment, a blood-red furnace appeared in the void. Waves of fire descended, sweeping away the evil aura in the air. Before anyone could react, a beautiful figure in a crimson dress appeared. She waved the sword in her hand, and a majestic sword aura broke through the void. It was the most familiar sword move. After a single sword strike, the woman carried the heavily injured Ji Yuqing and quickly left the scene. With a bang, the red-clothed man turned his palm to disperse the sword aura. Looking at the two disappearing figures, his eyes narrowed slightly. What a familiar sword move. With a flash of brilliance, the red-clothed man returned to his original appearance. His black robe fluttered in the wind, and the evil aura around him was glaring. 1,000 miles away, the two reappeared. The woman turned her palm and condensed her energy. Vigorous qi continuously flowed into Ji Yuqing's body to help her heal. Half a quarter of an hour later, the woman stopped and looked at the person in front of her, waiting for her to wake up. Not long after, Ji Yuqing opened her eyes and turned to look at the woman she had never seen before. She asked, You are the Red Monarch? The blood-red furnace that had appeared in the battle just now was the symbol of the Red Monarch. She had more or less heard of this new monarch. The woman nodded, a warm smile appearing on her face. Thank you for saving me, Miss Red Monarch. I will definitely repay you in the future, said Ji Yuqing. The woman shook her head. She still only smiled and didn't say anything. Ji Yuqing's eyes flashed. Miss, you can't speak? The woman nodded. Her warm smile didn't fade in the slightest. Ji Yuqing sighed inwardly. The heavens were truly unfair for such a kind woman to be unable to speak. The woman pointed at the two of them, and then pointed in the direction of the battle just now. She gently shook her head. Ji Yuqing narrowed her eyes. After a long while, she softly asked, You're saying that we shouldn't fight with that person again? None of us are his match. The woman nodded and made a few more hand gestures. They were becoming more and more difficult to understand. Ji Yuqing frowned. She didn't understand. The woman was silent for a moment. Then she sighed and smiled. She didn't stay any longer and turned to leave. Behind her, Ji Yuqing watched the woman's departing figure. Her eyes became more and more puzzled. What a strange woman. 10 days later, Sui appeared in front of the 34th sky pillar. She looked at the name on the pillar and directly walked forward. It was obvious that the name had been carved not too long ago. After walking 100 miles, Ningchen stopped. He swept his eyes over the traces left behind by the battle and narrowed his eyes. This was the God's Scroll, the familiar aura of the heavenly book. Ningchen spread out his divine sense and carefully felt the aura left behind by the battle. A moment later, The corner of his mouth curved up. That girl had also come. Young master, what's wrong? Seeing the smile on the former's face, Ruashi was puzzled. I met an old friend. Let's go, Ningchen whispered. A girl? It was rare to see the former in such a good mood, so Ruashi teased. Heh. Ningchen gently smiled. She's just a little girl. I taught her for some time, but I didn't expect her to grow to this extent. Perhaps you two will meet soon. As his voice fell, the two continued on their way. A cold wind blew, causing dust and sand to fly up behind them, covering the vast expanse. At the same time, on the various branches of the ancient roads, young powerhouses were moving forward. More than half of the ancient roads finally converged together. The competition between proud children of heaven had reached its peak. Within the mountain and river sword boundary, between black mountains and white waters, the snow sword art was filled with ink. After the final sword strike, a young man in an inky white cloak walked out. The mountains and rivers scattered and several figures behind him fell to the ground, never to rise again. Almost at the same time, countless miles away, the sounds of battle came to a stop. Black feathers drifted down from the sky, and a white-haired figure in black flashed past. Behind him, figures vomited blood from their throats, dyeing the starry skies red. Figures fell to the ground and blood dyed the earth red. In the void, the black feathers vanished. The sovereign of demons waved his hand and put away his sword. His icy cold eyes looked into the distance. An undetectable beam of light flashed past. He had finally caught up. Madame Luo stepped forward. Looking at the ancient road ahead, she said, "We must be careful. In just a short year, no less than 5 kings have died in battle. This is far too unusual. There should be some unknown influence that has infiltrated." You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.